Thank you.
Well, we can't while we're talking, so.
Good morning. This meeting will now come to order. Will the clerk read the call of the meeting and the return of service?
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Town of Duxbury, Town Meeting Warrant, Saturday, May 15, 2021, at 9:00 a.m. Duxbury High School and Middle School Gymnasiums, 71 Alden Street, Duxbury, Mass. Plymouth SS, greetings to the Constable of the Town of Duxbury and said county. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the Town of Duxbury qualified to vote in elections and in town affairs to meet in the Duxbury High School and Middle School Gymnasiums, 71 Alden Street, in said Duxbury on Saturday, the 15th day of May, 2021, next, at 9:00 in the forenoon for the transaction of any business that may legally come before said meeting. And you are hereby directed to serve this warrant by posting attested copies thereof as prescribed by Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 10, and by Chapter 2, Section 2.3.1 of the Town of Duxbury General Bylaws, at least 7 days before the time of holding said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of this meeting. Given under our hands this 12th day of April, 2021, Board of Selectmen, Amy McNabb, Chair, Fernando Guitart, Vice Chair, Theodore Flynn, Michael McGee, and Cynthia Ladd Fiorini. Plymouth SS, April 27, 2021. Pursuant to the warrant, I have this day notified and warned the inhabitants of the Town of Duxbury, herein described, to meet at the time and place and for the purposes as described by the bylaws of the town. A true copy attested, Mitchell Lebret, Constable of Duxbury.
Thank you. Unless there's an objection, we'll dispense with the reading of the warrant. I'd ask everybody to please stand for the presentation of the colors by the Honor Guard of the Duxbury Police and Fire Department. I would ask that you now join me in the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Be seated. Due to the COVID virus, this year's delayed town meeting will be different in many respects from past town meetings. And I thank all the chairs are spaced 6 feet apart and participants are expected to wear masks. And I want to thank everybody for your commitment to government and coming out today on this very nice summer day to do the important business of the town. I'd like to introduce some of the people in the front of the room, and I'll just really do this back row. On my left, your right, we have the Honorable Amy McNabb, Chair of the Board of Selectmen, and Fernando Guitart, Vice Chair. We have our finance director, John Adams, and our town manager, Mr. Reed. On the very far end, we have District Council Jeffrey Blake. On my right, we have your town clerk, Susan Kelly, and Linda Savati, the assistant town clerk. And to their right, your left, Betsy Sullivan, chair of the Finance Committee.
This week, yes.
This week anyway, and Kathleen Glynn. And we have other members in front of you. On my left, your right, members of the Board of Selectmen, representatives from the schools, and additional representatives from the Finance Committee. We're all here to answer your questions so we can get through this in an efficient way. We have multiple locations, but looking at the crowd, I think I can skip that section of the talk. We will fill up this room first. It will hold 200 people. The gymnasium behind me would hold an additional 200 people. And then if we need additional space, we're prepared for that. When you came in, you were given a voting device. It has a blue dot on it. The blue dot will only work in this room should you decide to go in the corridor where, if need be, we will have people vote. They will have a different device with a different dot. So again, if you're in this room, you need to have a device that has a blue dot. Microphones are...
Just about to hear back here.
I agree. Can you speak into the mic more, or something?
Is that any better? Okay. Please excuse me, I'm going to take my mask off. I'm not often accused of not having a loud voice, but the mask isn't helping. If you're in this room and you need a device with a blue dot, if you go to another room, for whatever reason, it will not work. You'll need to get a device that matches the color. I don't think, it doesn't look like we're going to have a sellout crowd, if you will, so I think we can all stay in this room. Microphones for your use, if you have any questions to be directed to on the articles, are in the front of the room. I need you to come to the microphone, identify yourself by name and street address before you speak. The fire chief has requested that you make a note of the fire exits in this room. Do not block these exits by standing or placing anything such as chairs in front of them, and the seating capacity for this room will be strictly enforced. I'm going to ask that you turn off your cell phones while you're in the meeting, except for public safety officials. And for your information, this meeting is being taped. There are a couple of procedures I'd like to mention, and I think I probably can go over quickly because this looks like an experienced town meeting crowd that we have here today. When you checked in, you did get a voting device. And we will be using that for voting. If you have any issues with your voting device, you need to go out in the corridor and talk to the people, and they will either give you some help with it or replace it. The voting process will be as follows. After debate is done, a light will go on in that cube to my right. I'm sorry? That's all right. To my right, and I will announce it's time to vote. You'll see a green light. You'll have 20 seconds to vote. At the end of that time, I will say voting is over, and it will turn red. And there's a very large screen, which means I can see it with or without my glasses, that will give us a precise vote. As part of the check-in procedures, tellers have been authorized and instructed by the Board of Registrars to request positive identification in cases of doubt. You were notified before we came that there'd be a special town meeting this morning, and it will begin shortly after we get through these initial comments. It is for items that needed to be dealt with in a timely manner. And so the procedure will be as follows. Upon completion of announcements, I'll entertain a motion to recess the annual town meeting until the adjournment of the special town meeting. We will then convene the special town meeting. Upon completion of the special town meeting, we'll come back and convene in the annual town meeting. At this point in our town meeting, we customarily ask you to give non-voters the permission to speak, and specifically for town employees and officials who are not registered voters in the town of Duxbury. and accordingly, I will entertain a motion to allow our town employees and officials to speak should the occasion arise. May I have a motion? Do I hear a second?
Second.
Very good. I think this is an opportunity to see if we all can vote with our device, And so I've been reminded that if you go to vote, 1 is for yes, 2 is for no, 1 is yes, 2 is no, and if you've pushed the wrong button, 3 will clear it and you can vote again. So, voting is now open. If you're looking at your screen and you see nothing, the bottom right-hand corner has an on-off button. Push that button and you should get some message or some characters on the screen. If we go long enough, and it could happen over a lunch break, it'll turn itself off. Once you vote, you should get a message down the bottom that says received. If you see received, that means your vote has been sent and has been counted. So I'd ask, so is voting now open? Not quite yet. I promise we'll get more efficient here very shortly. I appreciate your patience. Voting is now open. And you should see an above received, which means it sent a signal. Above it, it should say yes if the vote has gone through. And so the motion, and when it's over, it's going to show yes or no, right? Okay.
This is simply showing the number of
Okay. And so voting is over. The numbers have stopped going up. And so the total vote is, we had 52 yes and 1 no. Some could argue that technology has slowed this down, not sped it up. To remind everybody, we voted to allow our town officials and employees to speak, even if they're not residents, and unless I hear objection, I'll treat this vote as your permission for these people to also speak at the special town meeting if the need occurs. This meeting is governed by the statutes of our town bylaws and by town meeting time. In addition, I suggest we abide by a couple of other procedures that we may conduct business in an orderly fashion. After I have announced that we will be considering the article will be moved by the Finance Committee and their recommendations will be heard. I will then give the proposer of the article the opportunity of making his or her opening remarks. In those cases where there's organized opposition that I have been informed of, I will then give the opponent of the article the opportunity of making their opening remarks. Upon completion, it'll be open for general debate and discussion. I request that you go to the microphones, and after you've been recognized, you identify yourself. I'll request that all speakers limit their time to 5 minutes and ask that speakers do not attempt to be recognized for a second time on discussion until everybody else has had an opportunity to speak. And if you have any amendments, if they're lengthy and complicated, I ask that you please write them out so that we can get a clear record and understanding of what you wish to do. A couple of motions that you may hear about as we go through this. Motion for the previous question to move the question, and that is a motion that ends debate and will be quite useful. Having said that, there are a couple of rules that will follow. One is I will not accept a motion for the previous question from somebody who has just finished speaking for or against that article in order to avoid somebody getting the last word, if you will. And second, I won't accept a motion to move the previous question until the article has been introduced. People have had opportunity to speak, an opportunity for debate if so wished, before we move the question. If we get into the issue of reconsideration, I just remind people that a vote for reconsideration requires the same quantum vote as the original motion. It must be made in the same session as the original motion, which is to say it can't be held at a later date. It may only be made once on an article and only can be acted upon if, in the opinion of the moderator, we're dealing with factual information that was not available during the session when the original vote was taken. I'm going to suggest that we meet until about noontime or so, depending on where we are in an article, and then break for lunch and then come back. If necessary, we will come back tomorrow, but it's my hope that we can work our way through this warrant today. That having been said, I'll now entertain a motion to recess this annual town meeting until the adjournment of the special town meeting, which was called for at this date.
So moved. Second.
I hear a motion, a second. I'm going to suggest we try voting again. Voting is now open. We'll have 20 seconds to vote, 1 for yes, 2 for no. Voting is now closed, and it passes 66 to 1. I'm going to ask, I know we have electronic voting, and we decided as a community that it's something we'd like to do. I think a lot of these votes that we're going to take are somewhat procedural. I don't think people particularly care about if others see how they vote. And sort of, can I get a show of hands if you'd be comfortable with some voice votes on procedural items that might speed things up? All those who think it'd be a good idea? Yeah, okay. All those opposed? I may call for a number of procedural votes here. If you find it something that you're uncomfortable with, let me know, and we'll go back to, certainly my intention is to not people feel uncomfortable. We will go back and vote electronically. The clerk will please now read the call of service at special town meeting, or call of meeting and return to service.
Commonwealth of Massachusetts, Town of Duxbury, special town meeting warrant, Saturday, May 15, 2021, at 9:10 a.m., Duxbury High School, 71 Alden Street. Plymouth SS, greetings to the Constable of the Town of Duxbury in said county. In the name of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, you are directed to notify and warn the inhabitants of the Town of Duxbury, qualified to vote in elections and in town affairs, to meet in the Duxbury High School and Middle School Gymnasiums, 71 Alden Street, in said Duxbury, on Saturday, the 15th day of May, 2021, next, at 9:10 a.m. for a special town meeting for the transaction of any business that may legally come before said meeting. And you are hereby directed to serve this warrant by posting attested copies thereof as prescribed by Mass General Law, Chapter 39, Section 10, and by Chapter 2, Section 2.3.1 of the Town of Duxbury General Bylaws, at least 14 days before the time of holding said meeting. Hereof fail not, and make due return of this warrant with your doings thereon to the town clerk at the time and place of this meeting. Given under our hands this 12th day of April, 2021, Board of Selectmen, Amy McNabb, Chair, Fernando Guitart, Vice Chair, Cynthia Ladd Fiorini, Clerk, Theodore Flynn, and Michael McGee. Plymouth SS, April 27, 2021. Pursuant to the warrant, I have this day notified and warned the inhabitants of the town of Duxbury, herein described, to meet at the time and place and for the purposes as described by the bylaws of the town. A true copy attested, Mitchell Lebret, Constable of Duxbury.
We'll dispense with the reading of the warrant for the special town meeting. Now for the business of the special town meeting. Mrs. Sullivan, may we have a motion under Article 1 of the special town meeting?
Article 1, supplemental appropriations. I move that the town appropriate $119,255 by transfer from available funds to supplement appropriations previously voted under Article 5 of the annual town meeting of August 1st, 2020, for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2020, for the line items in the budgets of various town departments as follows. 210, Police Department salaries. Budget was $3,474,968. Adjustment, $64,255. Funding source, free cash. 2, DPW transfer station expenses. Budget, $911,800. Adjustment, $55,000. Funding source, free cash. Total adjustments, $119,255. Finance Committee voted 7 in favor, 1 abstain. Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Sullivan. Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article 2, Mrs. Sullivan.
Unpaid bills. I move that the town appropriate the sum of $13,754.48 to pay the following unpaid bills of previous fiscal years, and to meet said appropriation, transfer the sums as follows. Weston and Sampson for DPW, $5,750. Ahold Stop and Shop, DPW, $140.90. Tiger Towing, DPW, $100. Quest Diagnostics, Human Resources, $127.50. Health Express, Human Resources, $140. Sullivan Tire, no relation. DPW Highway, $741.18. Verizon Wireless Town Manager, $54.48. Verizon Wireless Lands and Natural Resources, $51.49. Pamela Campbell Smith, Selectmen, $62.93. City Hall Systems, the Treasurer Collector, $6,096. Environmental Partners, the Water Department, $490. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend. Second.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll call for a voice vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article 3, Mrs. Sullivan.
Special Education Reserve Fund. I move that the town appropriate the sum of $260,000 to the Special Education Reserve Fund, and to meet said appropriation, transfer the sum of $260,000 from free cash, such funds to be expended under the direction of the school committee. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend. Second.
We've had a motion and a second. Is there any discussion or debate? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Article number 4, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $110,000 to the Pension Reserve Fund, and to meet said appropriation, transfer the sum of $110,000 from free cash to such fund. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend. Second.
Motion having been made and seconded, are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Mrs. Sullivan, Article number 5.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $300,000 to the Other Post-Employment Benefits Trust Fund, otherwise known as OPEB, and to meet said appropriation, transfer the sum of $300,000 from free cash to such fund. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? Passes unanimously. Article number 6, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $250,000 to the stabilization fund, and to meet said appropriation, transfer the sum of $250,000 from free cash to such fund. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article number 7, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $250,000 to the capital stabilization fund, and to meet said appropriation, transfer the sum of $250,000 from free cash to such fund. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Article number 8, Mrs. Sullivan.
This is a vote to rescind borrowing authorization from unexpended funds. I move that the town rescind borrowing authorization in the amount of $46,961,546.47 from the following articles and/or projects. I can't read what month that was. October 29th, 2011. Article 28, water mains, $925,000. Authorization to be rescinded, $47,000. March 10, 2012. Article 1, school construction, project authorization, $120,505,034. Total authorization to be rescinded, $46,008,899.47. March 9th, 2019, Chromebooks. Authorization was $512,998. Amount to be rescinded, $44,897. March 9th, 2019, water PCE pipes, $2,250,000 authorized, $835,000 to be rescinded. March 10th, 2018, senior center expansion, $2,575,750 authorized, $25,750 to be rescinded. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Do I have any questions?
Mr. Moderator, if I may, just because this is...
Would you identify yourself?
Excuse me?
Please introduce yourself.
Yes. John Adams, Finance Director. I just wanted to make note of this particular article because you probably haven't seen one before. I haven't seen one in Duxbury yet. But this is basically a house cleaning measure. So the reason it's so big is, particularly with the school construction, was the MSBA funds. Obviously, in the vote to authorize the construction of the school buildings and the buildings that we're sitting in today, MSBA paid a portion, and obviously we've been paid that. So this is just getting this off the books so that it doesn't hit our debt capacity limits. And all of these amounts are unused amounts from the original intent.
Thank you. I think we're ready to vote now. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? It is unanimous. Article number 9, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move to authorize the Duxbury School Committee to enter into a contract with First Student, Inc. for transportation for a term of 3 years beginning July 1st, 2021, and ending June 30th, 2024, with the possibility of 2 additional option years extending to June 30th, 2026. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Are there any questions about this article? Please, sir, if you can go to a microphone. Against the, microphones are against the bleachers on either side.
I'd like to ask you a question. What is the cost of this contract?
I'm sorry, if you could,
What is the cost of the contract?
we'll see if we can't get you an answer.
Oh, sorry. Katie Blake, I am the business director for the school department. Is that all right? Thank you. Katie Blake, the business director for the school department. So the gross overall cost annualized is $1,630,000 for the transportation
I
contract.
cannot hear a word you're saying.
Katie, take your mask off while you're talking,
Sure.
honey, if it doesn't work. Yeah.
So the annualized gross cost for the school, for the transportation contract is $1,630,000.
So this contract is for a multi-year?
Correct.
With 2 extensions beyond that
Correct.
for the same price
No, for, it's a 2% increase.
each year?
Correct.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article number 10, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town authorize said betterments to bear interest at the rate of 1% above the rate of interest charged to the town for funds borrowed for said seawall repairs. Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Second.
Are there any questions? Hearing no questions, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, it's unanimous. Article number 11, Mrs. Sullivan.
Subject, matching grant funds. I move that the town transfer from available funds the sum of $250,000 to meet said appropriation, transfer the sum of $250,000 from free cash to be expended under the discretion of the Board of Selectmen and/or town manager to be used to provide for the town's local match gifts and/or grants committed to and/or received by the town from time to time. Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there a question about the article? Seeing none, I'll call for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, it is unanimous. Article number 12, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town authorize the Board of Selectmen to acquire by eminent domain a certain parcel of town-owned land located off Keene Street and identified as parcel 025-500-006, containing 3.5 acres of land, more or less, and recorded with the Plymouth Registry of Deeds in Book 1784, page 567, and to then convey in accordance with the vote taken under Article 19 of March 9, 2019 Annual Town Meeting. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it, it is unanimous. Article 13, before you address it, Mrs. Sullivan, I just want to make a comment. Article 13 seeks to transfer town-owned land to the Duxbury Affordable Housing Trust. Martha Hines is here to speak to it. As you can imagine, the Martha Hines is going to suggest that you vote for this article, and I know that the Finance Committee and Board of Selectmen are going to recommend indefinite postponement. So before I accept a motion to indefinitely postpone, I'm going to ask Mrs. Sullivan to introduce the article, Ms. Hines to talk about the article, and then we'll go to a vote to indefinitely postpone.
Mr. Tuffy, there is no language here for a motion other than to indefinitely postpone. I can
All
speak
right.
to the article as
You
to
can
our discussion,
speak.
but it will not be the language, and other,
Right.
if you want me to read the warrant article.
So to avoid any confusion, we'll make a motion to Motion to indefinitely postpone, but we will not vote on that motion until Ms. Hines has a chance to address it, and anybody else who may have a question about it. So we
If
will-
anything that we discussed is germane, I will speak after Mrs. Hine.
Yes, please.
I move to indefinitely postpone. Finance Committee voted 2-3-2, 2 in favor, 3 against, 2 to abstain, to recommend. The motion
Second.
failed. Go.
Second.
Go right ahead. I think we all agree presentations were a lot more convenient when we had the big screen on the wall as opposed to storyboards.
Well, you might have to. Thank you. Martha Himes, 127 Vine Street, Vice Chair of the Duxbury Affordable Housing Trust. This exact same article was approved unanimously last year by both the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen, but was pulled from the town meeting warrant in order to save time. The members of the Affordable Housing Trust include the former CEO of a real estate investment firm, the former director of South Shore Housing, a selectman, a planning board member, an attorney, and a retired special needs advocate. Mark Casey of South Shore Survey is an active volunteer for the trust, and we retain Bob Galvin as our attorney. We have a housing plan, which is updated every 5 years by a consultant hired by the trust. Included in that plan is a town-wide needs analysis. Not only does this plan guide the trust in our endeavors, its existence also makes the town eligible for safe harbor, a 1 or 2 year development moratorium allowed by the Commonwealth if the town achieves some of its goals. When updated in 2019, the plan recommended that Duxbury, 1, increase housing for special needs populations such as the developmentally disabled and disabled veterans. 2, increase the supply of rental housing for low-income residents. For a single person, that annual income range would be between $30,000 and $45,000. For a family of 4, it would be between $40,000 and $75,000. 3, increase homeownership opportunities for first-time home buyers earning between $70,000 and $100,000. On a side note, I'd like to point out that these are not poverty range incomes we're talking about. They're middle class and working class. There's been a lot of talk about diversity this year, and income diversity should be part of that conversation. In the past few years, we've developed 8 units with Habitat for Humanity. 6 at Feinberg Bog Road, and then 2 houses. We have coordinated with the Conservation Commission, the CPA, and the Agricultural Commission on 2 large land purchases, one on East Street. We helped finance an expansion of Island Creek that brought the town's subsidized housing inventory from 3% to 7.8%. This slide says 7.4, but I checked the DHCD's website yesterday. They have us at 7.8% effective December 31st, 2020. And a lot of that is thanks to Judy Barrett, who the trust hired to update the town's records at the DHCD so that we would get credit for all of our affordable housing. Most recently, we've put a 20-unit development out to bid, of which 5 units will be affordable and 5 more will be moderately priced in perpetuity. A couple of years ago, the trust hired consulting firm Dodson & Flinker to do an analysis of potentially buildable town-owned parcels. One of the parcels they found was this one. Oh, sorry, thank you. Mark Casey of South Shore Survey did some feasibility engineering on it for the trust and determined that the lot could hold up to 12 bedrooms if an alternative septic design were installed. Unfortunately, Mr. Casey cannot be here this morning to answer questions about that, and I am not a septic engineer, so I'm not even going to try. With the help of Judy Barrett and Planning Director Valerie Massard, who has been a tremendous help, the Trust has been educating itself on alternative forms of affordable housing, such as congregate care. With these two lots, we'd like to explore something we just learned about called the Greenhouse Project, which is a form of non-institutional assisted living. To quote from the Greenhouse Project website, their mission is to create, quote, small-scale, self-contained, and self-sufficient nursing home and assisted living settings. Each home includes private rooms and bathrooms for each resident, a living room with a fireplace, a kitchen where meals are prepared, and outdoor spaces that are easy to access and navigate, end quote. In the past 17 years, 360 of these homes have been built throughout the nation to house special needs populations and elders. Each house serves between 7 and 10 residents. The units would be rental, and we've been told that they would be eligible for the subsidized housing inventory. A greenhouse developer has informed us that an acre of land is sufficient to build a home. As we've done on 2 occasions in the past, if we discover that the land is unsuitable and cannot support affordable housing, we'll turn it over to the Conservation Commission. Thank you. Anyone have any questions?
Thank you. Are there any questions? Please, if you go to microphone. Yeah, and there aren't a lot of crowds, so you can pick any available one.
Steve Marshall, 97 Blodgett Ave, Duxbury. Again, I'd like a clarification of what is the intended use for this 1-acre parcel on Lincoln Street?
Okay, we'll see if we can't get you an answer.
Initially, we were thinking about a 2-unit duplex. Now we are really leaning toward this greenhouse project, assuming it's feasible. We have no reason to believe that if it is not feasible, that a duplex could not be built on the property.
I'm a little short.
We have
Okay.
done engineering.
Okay, thank you.
I'll recognize the woman in the yellow.
Woman in yellow.
The woman in the yellow. If your
Susan
name,
K-
give us your name,
Susan-
please.
Susan Kadar, 290 Kingstown Way. I'd like to ask the question, how do you plan to finance this?
We would actually not be responsible for financing it. The developer of the property would be responsible for financing it. If it is one of these greenhouse projects, my understanding is that it's sort of like a 40B for special needs populations, meaning that there's a certain percentage, say 30% of the residents pay full market rate, and then 30% of them are subsidized. And the funding, the USDA has been a source of loans to build these houses, but again, we would literally just be turning this lot over to the developer who would build it. And that is true with a duplex as well. If that were the case, we would not be financing anything.
Thank you. I'm familiar with 40B. And then I would like to ask the Finance Committee the reason for the indefinite postponement.
If I could, I'm going to ask Mrs. Sullivan to make a presentation after we get through this round of questions.
Is that okay?
Thank you.
If I could,
Yep, from over here, yeah?
Hmm?
From here, yeah.
yeah. I'll just recognize the woman in the blue.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Mary Lynn Carson, 21 Washington Street. My question was actually her last question, but I also wanted to make a general statement that those of us in the back, I don't know if it's the acoustics of the room
or the ventilation system, or the wearing of masks, or not speaking close enough to the mic, but many of us are still having trouble hearing. So if we could establish some way that we can hold our hands up to let you know we're not hearing, so that you can, if you could probably speak at the mic without a mask. I think your presentation was very important, but it was a little bit rushed, and it was difficult for us in the back to hear. Just coming to the mic, I can already hear you much more clearly. But back there, I don't know why, but it's an issue. So I just wanted to bring it to town meeting's attention.
Thank you. So, Mrs. Sullivan, if you'll...
So many of the questions that you've asked were the questions that we had as well. When the article was proposed to us, there was no plan attached to it for the use of the land, and we felt that although the intent certainly is in line with where we are and what we're trying to do, there was no definitive plan. This is the first I'm hearing of the handicapped housing, the greenhouse housing. And we asked to be indefinitely postponed. Also, the fact that the trust has several major projects in their immediate future: Harrington Farm, East Street, Lincoln Street, and we felt that although this was, a potentially good piece of land to be used for this purpose, that we would like to know what was going to be done on the land before we turned it over. And it was the lack of concrete information that asked us to indefinitely postpone until that information could be brought back to the town meeting. Thank you.
And could I just a second, Mrs. McNabb?
I just wanted to say, the East Street RFP should be going out.
Can't hear you,
Oh,
Mark.
sorry.
All right.
The East Street RFP should be going out, I think, in a couple of weeks. It's all written, it's approved, and we are still, the Harrington property,
So
we're still waiting
the
on.
point is that town meeting isn't the time updating is good, but on the fly decisions,
I appreciate that, but it was the last year's intent was a duplex, and we could certainly have been discussing that. That was the plan that was brought to you initially.
Also, what was presented to us is that the land was going to have a septic system that wasn't completely, wasn't normal, was enhanced, was a special system, and that was new information for us as well, which, if the land is fragile, it further impacts the use. It wasn't the use. We were supportive of affordable housing. It was just we thought the article was a bit premature, and that there wasn't enough information for us to explain to town meeting why we wanted to do it.
Thank you. Mrs. McNabb, you had a question.
Thank you. On behalf of the Board of Selectmen, we very much echo the concerns that the Finance Committee had on this article. We certainly are committed to assisting with affordable housing needs, and feel that this committee would benefit from some support moving forward. So we are looking into how to best support this group, but they did have multiple projects going on. Again, this is the first we're hearing of an alternate plan other than the duplex that was originally discussed. So again, we suggest that town meeting definitely postpone this article.
Mary Lynn Carson again, 21 Washington. If you could take your mask off to speak, would you explain to us how postponing this article, which we already voted at town meeting last year, is impacted by, how is it impacted by postponing, if we were to postpone today?
Well, actually, I believe the article was presented, a similar article was presented last year, was not voted favorably by town meeting. Is that accurate?
No, it didn't go to town meeting.
Oh, it didn't go to town meeting. I apologize.
Okay, sorry.
Because the warrant was abbreviated last year due to COVID-19, we agreed to remove this article from the warrant last year. However, it was the exact same article, worded exactly the same. And I would like to point out that on 2 occasions already, when the trust has found that a property does not adequately support housing, it's too wet, whatever, we have turned it over to the Conservation Commission.
And so I still didn't think I got an answer to my question. With it being postponed today, does that negatively impact what you're doing going forward?
We would just focus on our other projects, and we would come back later with this. If this is voted down, we cannot come back for 2 years with this article, and we understand that, and we're fine with that.
Okay, thank you.
More comment for clarification. Indefinite postponement is not a vote for yes or for no. It is, as the name implies, we're going to put this off to a future date and take it up at that time. So it's not yes, it's not no, we're not prepared to make a decision on it today, is my explanation of it. Is there any other questions? Seeing none, we're ready for a vote. A vote for indefinite, so what's going to happen is we're going to ask whether you're going to vote for indefinite postponement. If you vote to indefinitely postpone, it can come back at a future date. If you vote no on indefinite postponement, we will then come back and ask you to take a vote that's yes or no on transferring the land. Is that clear? Make sense? Okay. So indefinite postponement is a majority vote. All those in favor, we'll do this one by voice. Say aye. Aye. All those opposed? No. I call that a majority vote to indefinitely postpone.
Thank you.
That completes the business and the warrant for the special town meeting. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. Sani Dai.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? The ayes have it. This meeting is adjourned. We now go to the 2021 annual town meeting, now reconvenes where we left off at Article 1. And at this point in time, I believe we have, Mr. Reed, we have some presentations?
Morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Thank you all for coming. We have a couple of presentations that we'd like to make this morning. The first of them is honoring our former board member, David Madigan. David, would you mind joining us up here? And I'd ask that Ted Flynn join me, please.
Good morning. I'd like to read a resolution for a colleague, David Madigan, who served very notably on the Board of Selectmen for a number of years. Whereas David J. Madigan served with distinction as a highly regarded member of the Board of Selectmen from 2012 to 2021, and as chair for 3 of those years, and whereas David Madigan first served on the Finance Committee in 2004 and then the Fiscal Advisory Committee from 2007 through 2012, prior to his election to the Board of Selectmen, and whereas David J. Madigan, during his tenure as Selectman, played an active role on the Insurance Committee ensuring that employees receive the best possible health care, served on the IT Steering Committee resulting in the hiring of the town's first Chief Technology Officer, and also served as the Selectmen's liaison to numerous boards and committees. Whereas David J. Madigan, during his leadership, saw the following projects through to completion: a new police station, expanded and remodeled fire station, along with the new regional dispatch center, state-of-the-art co-located high school and middle school, and the much-needed addition to the senior center. Whereas, as a public servant, David J. Madigan intently listened to all sides of an issue, carefully weighed the pros and cons through thoughtful deliberation, and provided his expertise as well as the voice of reason and all the best interest of the town of Duxbury and the residents he served. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on this 15th day of May 2021, the town of Duxbury, by and through the Board of Selectmen, Chairperson and Town Manager, offers David J. Madigan its grateful appreciation for his leadership and heartfelt thanks for his many years of dedicated service to the town and its employees. Amy McNabb, Chair, Board of Selectmen, Rainey Reed, Town Manager. Congratulations.
I want to thank you all for letting me serve the town for 9 years. It was a lot of fun most of the time, and a little more difficult sometimes, but I'm glad to see that the town is now in good hands of a new board, and we're moving forward. Thank you.
Mr. Moderator, I would welcome Amy McNabb, the Chair of the Board of Selectmen, to the podium.
Thank you, and thank you all for coming out today. I'd like to present a resolution to Mary E. Lambert, also known as Pixie. Whereas Mary E. Lambert has served as the chair of the Duxbury Nuclear Advisory Committee from August 12, 1991 to the present, and has been a tireless advocate for public safety issues regarding Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station's operations and post-operations. And whereas Mary E. Lambert, as the director of Pilgrim Watch, helped to educate the general public on nuclear issues and advocate for public safety within and beyond the borders of Duxbury. And whereas Mary E. Lambert has been and continues to be a passionate advocate, spending countless hours reviewing U.S. Nuclear Regulatory Commission communications, attending public hearings, speaking out to highlight issues and concerns, rallying the support of state and federal legislators, and educating the public throughout the process. And whereas Mary E. Lambert has recognized that the decommissioning of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station does not mean the work is done, but is perhaps more important than ever. And whereas Mary E. Lambert has advocated for improved emergency planning, recommended corrections to Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station's operating problems, cited concerns with respect to the electrical systems at the station, spoken out for safer storage of nuclear waste, pushed for ongoing monitoring and radioactive emissions, and made the case for corporate financial responsibility for the costs. Now, therefore, be it resolved that on May 15, 2021, the town of Duxbury, Massachusetts, through and by the Board of Selectmen, Chairperson and Town Manager, does hereby recognize that and thank Mary E. Lambert for her relenting advocacy and promotion for public safety regarding all aspects of the operations and decommissioning of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station. Mary is truly a sterling example of how one person can make a difference for the present and future generations. Signed, Amy McNabb, Chairperson, and Rainey Reed, Town Manager. Thank you, Pixie. We all sleep better at night for you.
Thank you very much, and the saying that it takes a village is truly the case, and thank all the work of our community in setting the example for the Commonwealth.
And then because I've never seen one without the other, I'd ask Becky Chin to come up as well, please. We have a similar resolution, which reads as follows. Whereas Becky Chin has dedicated her service on the Duxbury Nuclear Advisory Committee since 2002, serving as co-chair for many of those years, continually advocating for public safety for the community during the operation of the Pilgrim Nuclear Power Station through its decommissioning. And whereas Becky Chin was a member of the Town Growth Study Committee created by Article 13 of the 1986 Special Town Meeting, I was a senior in high school, was elected to the was elected to the school committee for 2 terms, serving from 87 to 93, was a member of the Board of Health from 97 to 2003, serving as the board's representative of the Community Advisory Committee and for Women's Issues at Jordan Hospital, as well as the Ad Hoc Committee on Water Quality, where she was a strong advocate for issues related to PCE, and served on the Duxbury Cultural Council from 2006 to 2012. And whereas Becky Chin has been a passionate volunteer at least since '87 and was the honorable recipient of the Duxbury Senior Center's prestigious President's Call to Service Award for gifting over 4,000 hours of her time to the town of Duxbury. And whereas Becky Chin has also been a longtime election worker at the polls and at annual town meetings, Town Clerk Susan Kelly extends her sincerest thanks for Becky's persevering through many long hours. And whereas Becky Chin will continue to be a steadfast and staunch supporter of the public health, safety, and well-being of her community and fellow residents here in Duxbury, because even though Pilgrim has shut down, the work does continue. Now, therefore, be it resolved on May 15th, 2021, the town of Duxbury, Massachusetts, through and by the Board Selectman Chairperson and Town Manager, does hereby recognize Becky Chin for her many years of advocacy and promotion of public health and safety, and we thank Becky for making a difference in our community. Signed, Amy McNabb, Chair, Board of Selectmen, and myself, Town Manager.
I thank you. Now back to the town meeting. Mrs. Sullivan, may we have a motion under Article 1?
I move that the town receive the reports of town officials, boards, committees, and commissions. Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Mr. Reed, are there any items to be received or spoken at a town meeting? There are none, so we can now move on to Article number 2.
I move that the town fix the compensation of the elected town officers for the 12-month period beginning July 1st, 2021, as set forth in the column entitled Finance Committee Recommended FY22 as printed in the warrant. The Finance Committee voted 6-0 to recommend.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, I'll take a voice vote on this. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Article number 3, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move to indefinitely postpone this article. There are no contracts to vote on.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, it passes unanimously. Article number 4, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $140,000 to implement the personnel policy and provide funding for any other salary or compensation not addressed by the personnel policy, as printed in the warrant, and to meet said appropriation raise and appropriate the sum of $135,000 and transfer the sum of $5,000 from water retained earnings to be expended under the discretion of the town manager. Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Are there any questions on the article? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed say no. The ayes have it, is unanimous. Article number 5.
Okay, this is
Can
where the rubber hits the road here as far as.
This is the annual budget, and just a couple of things I want to mention. Mrs. Sullivan and Mr. Reed will have some comments to be made before we start on Article number 5. When we get to the school portion of it, the chair of the school committee has some comments that she would like to make as well. Article 5 we will deal with in the way we normally deal with it, which is to say it is divided up into 2 separate votes, actually 3 votes. One is a vote for the, or 3 separate sections. One is a vote for the general budget, which is really everything but the school budget. Then a vote on the school budget, a vote on what is the Water Enterprise Fund, and then finally a vote that ties all of it together. Until we have that final vote, all of those items that we're talking about can be taken up without moving reconsideration. Having said that, Mrs. Sullivan, may we have a motion on Article 5, motion number 1?
Did you want us to make our remarks before?
Good point. Mr. Reed, are you going to go first?
Oh, no, I yield to.
You yield to Mrs. Sullivan. Mrs. Sullivan, the
He
floor...
likes the last word. I think we all know
I think
that,
that's
yes.
probably true. The floor is yours.
Nobody really wants this to be a long speech, and it will not be. I think the understatement of the century is to say that it has been a difficult year. We've all faced personal challenges, and the town has faced many challenges in its operations, its staffing, its interactions with you, our community, and has managed to get through and I think provide good service and the best interaction that was possible under these extraordinary times. We faced the year with, I faced the year with an extraordinary committee that were willing to put countless hours into looking at our budget in a new way. We looked at the budget with level funding, not level service. Typically, when we look at it, we try to see what it would cost to do the same thing that we had done the year before as appropriate. This year, we started out with doing the same thing as we did the year before with no additional expense. We did not know what our revenues would be. John Adams, I cannot say enough about the data, the attention to detail, the endless requests to him to provide us with information that would help us in our deliberations and our guidance of town department heads who were not always happy, but always working hard for the outcome. We asked them to do the impossible, and they did it. We have today a balanced budget for your pleasure to review and hopefully support, and it could not have been done without the town manager, Mr. Adams, and this amazing board that I work with. The fiscal advisory had an equally difficult task, and I'm sure they will speak to that later, but they, again, countless hours on Zoom. I am so sick of Zoom. I know that it is, nothing any of us want to see again, but it is a very useful tool. We also had the Selectmen join us for many of our meetings. They were trying to be kind to department heads so that they wouldn't have to make several presentations. They understood the challenge that we all faced and really dug in to understand what we were discussing, and we so appreciated the fact that they were part of the conversation so that we could come out with a great outcome. The gift of the year, because I refuse to look at it as a year of just pain, was that we took time to look at our budgets. We had time. We were all trapped in our houses. And we looked at it differently with having the guidelines put forth that we were looking at trying to accomplish the same thing or what was necessary and appropriate with the same amount of money. It made us really do a deep dive into these budgets, and I cannot tell you how cooperative and helpful the town manager, the finance director, and the department heads were in working with us to try to come up with something that made sense for a year that made no sense. We have also, from that, had some plans for future analysis, how we work in the future to look at budgets. There were things we learned this year, and we're going to take them into the future. We are going to try, and we are going to implore you to be supportive of the fact that we need to plan ahead. We have at least 3, if not more, capital expenses that we will not have the ability to defer. We have a DPW barn that will fall down someday on the millions of dollars of equipment that we own. We have a seawall that is not going away, that we are working with the folks down in the Gurnet and with the rest of the community to resolve. And we have a beautiful bridge that we treasure that has problems and that we are going to have to address. So one of the things that the Finance Committee is committing to is to coming back to this town meeting and not giving you the false premise that there are choices in these matters, but merely to give you opportunities to weigh in on how we address them, what would be the most financially best for the town, what is going to hurt the least and accomplish the most. And I hope that you can help us in that endeavor by understanding that we are not asking whether we should or we shouldn't, but rather how we should. The support that we've gotten from Rainey and from Q and from the Selectmen on this issue, we, I think, stand united in this position and coming back to you and asking some hard questions, because it will cost money to do these things, but we have to do them. So I would not be fair to the board if I didn't thank some of the folks. We had some folks that have left our committee. Fernando has moved on up and was a vital member of our committee and has translated that into his work with the Selectmen and brings that knowledge to that board as well. And we thank him for his service, and we thank him, oh, there you are. And we thank you. And we thank him for continuing his work with the town. And I saved this for last because I always choke up. My dear friend and co-chair, Frank Mangione, has moved to Chicago to be with family. And we'll never fill that hole. We don't pretend that we will fill that hole. He calls me still every day, and I treasure that. I believe he is watching this today and is streaming, and I'd just like us to take a moment and give him a round of applause for the millions of hours that he's given us. Woo! So we have a board member that lives in Chicago. It makes his votes a little iffy, but he is still weighing in and has been such a gift to this town that that we will never ever replace. Although I will end my remarks with, we do have openings on Finance Committee, and it is hard work. It is rewarding work. And if anyone is mind to do that, please fill out a talent bank form, reach out to John, reach out to me. We'd love to talk to you about what the commitment is and the work that we do, and we will move ahead. So thank you.
Thank you.
That's it.
Mr. Reed.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning. Everything I want you to know is in a handout that I prepared out front. There's 250 copies. Incredibly, there's only 77 voters here today. So I know there's more than enough. You can take one home, give it to a friend. It'll tell you how we got to where we are. The most important thing, as Betsy already said, is that our budget is balanced. It was not easy. And with that, I'm going to skip over all the minutia and the details because I want you to take it home and absorb it. I want you to look at it while you're sitting here as we run through the lines. You'll see how we derived each of the figures. But I did want to let you all know that the development of the town's budget plan is a total team effort. My thanks go to the Board of Selectmen and the Finance Committee for their continued support, encouragement, and direction throughout this process. I'd also like to thank the Fiscal Advisory Committee, the School Committee, Dr. Antonucci and his entire staff, and finally all of our volunteer board and committee members who serve our community so well. They're to be commended for their tireless efforts. The town's department heads, all of whom are either in this room or sitting just outside the door, with whom I work, are an incredible, talented group of individuals, and they're able to project the needs of their departments and manage their budgets with great accuracy and efficiency. Each of them have my sincerest gratitude, along with their respective staff members, for their hard work and dedication, and I truly appreciate all of it. And I want to especially thank my friend John Adams for all of his efforts this past year in helping us navigate some remarkably tough financial waters. Your work has been nothing short of incredible, and I'm truly grateful to you, as are many of the others in this room. In fact, these are his words that you'll be reading. I also want to wish a happy 39th anniversary to Betsy Sullivan, who is spending the day with us instead of Skip. How about that?
Skip thanks you as well.
Yeah, he's a saint. He's a saint. And I wanted to say hello to Frank as well. And like I said, my comments are going to be brief because the mall is open and I know you all want to be there. So thanks for coming.
I know, do you believe it? Are you ready?
Mr. Adams, I think you had some corrections you wanted to bring up, and then we'll get to the motion.
Okay.
And I'd like to just take the mystery out of what we're going to say. Thank you. We'll take the mystery out of what's going to be said. There are some typographical errors in the warrant, in the town report that was put out. It will not change the numbers that we talked about voting on before. It's just a matter of correction.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Moderator. Yes, there are a few inconsistencies between the warrant and the motion you're going to see. All the line items in the warrant are exactly as in the motion. The only problem is there's some of the subtotals in the warrant were not corrected. All the subtotals in the motion are the correct ones. General government for the town manager and finance committee in the warrant should read $3,704,949. The subtotal for library and recreation in the warrant for the town manager and finance committee should read $2,033,003. And on page 20 of the warrant, the insurance reserve fund subtotal should be $804,372, and the grand total of all budgets in the same columns, town manager and finance committee, should be $83,520,352. And that's it.
Did people get that? Do you need it repeated? Repeat it?
John, the numbers I read will be correct.
Yeah, so all the numbers in the warrant, in the motion are correct, but in the warrant, the subtotal for general government should be, under the town manager and finance committee, should be $3,704,949.
And if I could just add, I believe that is after line number 20, after line number 29, page 15 of your warrant, far right-hand corner. I believe it currently says $3,705,076. That's the number we're looking to change.
Correct. And then on page 19, for the subtotal of library and recreation, that's after line 78. Under the finance committee and town manager, the subtotal should read $2,033,003. On page 20 of the warrant, after line 88, after reserve fund, that subtotal should be $804,372. And then the grand total of all budgets under the Finance Committee and Town Manager should be $83,520,352.
And that number appears after line number 98 on page 21. So that having been said, Mrs. Sullivan, I believe we're ready for motion number 1 in Article 5.
Okay. I move that the town appropriate the sum of $42,534,411 as the general fund operating budget of the town, as printed in the warrant in lines 1 through 78 and lines 81 through 92, for the purposes and in the amounts specified below, and to meet said appropriation, raise and appropriate the sum of $41,338,583, and to transfer the sum of $1,195,828, of which $73,482 shall come from the Waterways Improvement Fund to fund lines 38 and 39. $127,441 shall come from the Water Enterprise Fund revenue for lines 13, 48, 81, 82, 83, and 84. $303,475 shall come from the PEG Access Fund revenue for line 20. $100,000 shall come from the Pension Reserve Fund for line 84. $361,115 shall come from the fund balance bond premium for line 89. $14,315 shall come from the sale of real estate fund for line 89, and $216,000 shall come from free cash to be expended under the direction of the town manager. The Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend after much deliberation.
Second.
Okay. John, I'm assuming that we're going to do the hold method here?
What Mrs. Sullivan is gonna do now is read each of the line items that constitute this budget. If anybody has a question or would like to get information about that line item, I'm gonna ask you to loudly say hold, my chance to say I need to hear you. Say hold, and we will go back and answer those in the order that they, numerical order. So,
Okay. Ready? Line 1, town meeting expenses, $3,200. Line 2, moderator salary, $40. Line 3, selectman manager salaries, $271,889. Expenses, line 4, $12,539. Historical Commission, line 5, expenses, $1,000. Finance Committee, line 6, salaries, goose egg. And line 7, expenses, $210. Accounting, line 8, salaries, $359,833. Expenses, line 9, $9,110. Audit expenses, line 10, $50,000. Assessor, line 11, salaries, $223,177. Line 12, expenses, $26,350. Treasurer Collector, line 13, salaries, $295,271. Expenses, line 14, $104,880. Legal services, line 15, expenses, $190,200. Human resources, line 16, salaries, $140,075. Expenses, line 17, $36,515. Information systems, line 18, salaries, $300,829. Line 19, expenses, $450,982. Okay?
Thank you.
Public television access services, line 20, expenses, $303,475. Tax title, line 21, expenses, $7,500. Town clerk, line 22, salaries, $157,457. Line 23, expenses, $26,695. Conservation Commission, line 24, salaries, $149,357. Line 25, expenses, $12,519. Planning Board, line 26, salaries, $141,168. Expenses, line 27, $7,450. Facilities Management, line 28, salaries, $245,228. Let me repeat, $245,228, line 28. Line 29, expenses, $178,000. Public Safety, Police, salaries, line 30, $3,484,291, sorry.
And that was a hold on line 30.
Thank you. Line 31, expenses, $297,612. Fire, line 32, salaries, $3,068,181. Line 33, expenses, $337,475. Regional Dispatch, line 34, salaries, $792,545. Thank you. Expenses, $72,325. Municipal Services, line 36, salaries, $568,131. Expenses, line 37, $27,065. Harbor Coastal Management, line 38, salaries, $238,055. Expenses, line 39, $39,020. Public Works, Central Building Services, line 40, salaries, $54,205. Line 41, expenses, $153,075. Tarleton Community Center, line 42, expenses, $7,050. Animal Control, salaries, line 43, $86,028. Line 44, expenses, $7,100. Lands and Natural Resources, line 45, salaries, $499,525. Line 46, expenses, $47,200. Central Fuel Depot, line 47, expenses, $212,500. DPW Administration, line 48, salaries, $303,045. Line 49, expenses, $68,250. Vehicle Maintenance, line 50, salaries, $180,652. Line 51, expenses, $179,000. Highway Road Maintenance, line 52, salaries, $521,970,000. Line 53, expenses, $80,500. $63,500. Snow and ice, salaries, line 54, $63,750. Line 55, expenses, $138,600. Street lights, expenses, line 56, $51,000. Transfer station, line 57, salaries, $248,919. Expenses, line 58, $880,300. Sewer, line 59, salaries, $17,018. Expenses, line 60, $212,000. $214,000. Thank you, Kathleen. Cemetery, 61, salaries, $432,552. Expenses, line 62, $210,500. Human Services, Council on Aging, line 63, salaries, $439,321. Expenses, line 64, $139,575. Veteran Services, line 65, salaries, $44,369. Expenses, line 66, $84,300. Plymouth County Cooperative Extension, line 67, $500. Library and Recreation, library, line 68, salaries, $959,964. Expenses, line 69, $324,801. Recreation, line 70, salaries, $235,110. Line 71, expenses, $5,775. Percy Walker Pool, line 62, salaries, $121,815.
Line 72, babe.
Line 72. Now we're getting to the point where I can't read. 73, line 73, expenses, $129,150. North Hill Golf Course, line 74, expenses, $1,500. Beach Lifeguards, line 75, salaries, $33,480. Line 76, expenses, $2,500. Beach Operations, line 77, salaries, $184,133. Line 78, expenses, $34,775. Employee, town, and school shared costs, line 81, Medicare, $699,950. Line 82, life insurance, $11,200. Line 83, employee and retiree health insurance, $8,627,111. Contributory pensions, line 84, $4,503,370. Line 85, non-contributory pensions, $20,000. Line 86, workers' compensation, $342,985. Other shared costs, line 87, fire liability insurance, $587,945. Line 88, reserve fund, $216,427. Debt, service, town, and school. Line 89, principal payments, $5,125,000. Line 90, interest on bonded debt, $2,104,307. Interest on temporary notes, line 91, $258,660. Line 92, bond expense, $10,000. There you go.
We'll go back, excuse me, we'll go back and deal with the holds. I believe the first one was number 19.
Hi, Lester Lloyd, 21 Washington Street. Just a question, what had been requested for information systems in terms of the comparison to 21 versus 22, and what actually was granted for the increase from 21 to 22?
We'll see if we can't get you an answer.
I think that our new Chief Technology Officer would be best served to address that. And it's great to introduce him to everyone as well, although he's been here for a while in another capacity.
I think I'd like to just speak to that a little bit as one of the co-chairs of the IT steering committee. Mike has just started his sojourn, if you will, his job May 1st, I think, and I think between the transition, they're working toward, again, the strategic master plan that was presented to you, was it 2 years ago, I think? We went through that, and we're starting to do the consolidation of the network between the school and the town, and those are the kinds of expenses that we're going to see a little bit of an increase in as we go along in our master plan. So I don't have the specific details for you. I'm sure that Mike would be happy to present those to you at another time, but I don't think that you have them right in your back pocket. Do you, Mike?
I do not, I apologize.
Okay.
But I'd actually like to ask
Good.
that.
Hi, Mary Beth McClory, 214 Park Street, IT Director. So what happened is, as Kathleen was saying, we had an IT study that was completed. And as a result of the IT study, there were new proposals that went forth. So much of what you're seeing are recommendations from the IT study. Do you have other questions that I can answer related to it? Do you need?
So what I'm assuming is the town, in view of the budget, just decided, obviously, not to fund all of those recommendations at this time, but
Oh,
hold
so
on.
you're talking about the $532,000 that was originally requested by myself? Well, what happened in the meantime is I went out for a grant, and I was given the grant, so the grant is supplementing that $532,000.
Excellent, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
And thank you, Mary Beth, for getting the grant.
Yes, thank you, Mary Beth.
Line item number 30.
Lester Lloyd, 21 Washington. I just wondered if I could get a brief explanation. I don't mean to open this up too far, but in terms of the beach management and how that relates to...
Could I just, had you placed the hold on line item 30?
That was police?
Police
was it
salaries.
Mary Beth? I beg your pardon, it was a later line item.
Okay.
I placed the hold on.
No problem. And in fact, if you have a follow-up question to what's being asked, you can go right ahead, but we'll recognize.
Mary Lynn Carson,
Thank you.
21 Washington Street. So my question is this. The police have been relieved of their duties in terms of the beach operations, and there have been substitutions made for their services there. So I am wondering if the figures shown here reflect that diminishment of duties.
The original request from the police was a higher number, which did include beach operations. And as the beach operations department was staffed and that strategy was finalized, their request did reflect a reduction in what they were asking for in salaries. Their original department request was $3,598,947. And after negotiation involving services, duties, the beach, and exhaustive conversations with the Finance Committee and the Selectmen, that number was reduced to what you see here.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Line item number 34.
Regional dis-
Lester Lloyd, 21 Washington. So could you just talk a little bit about the salary increase there?
Michael, do you want to?
Mr. Moderator, I can take that one. With respect to the regional dispatch, this is one department. As you recall, last year, we got approved at town meeting to go to the legislature and get this set up as a enterprise fund. And the reason for that is we take on new member towns from time to time. This salary increase is a reflection of bringing on the town of Hanson. And then next year, we'll be bringing on the town of Hanover. So that's why there's always increases in salaries, but there's always an offset on the revenue side. And next year, hopefully, we'll see this as an enterprise fund and not sitting within the general fund budget.
Thank you.
Line item 38.
Lester Lloyd, 21 Washington. So is Harbor Coastal Management, the salary decrease, also reflective of some of the beach responsibilities being given to the
The harbor master has not had responsibility for the beach for 2 years, so it does not reflect that. His responsibilities have not included, although he certainly does assist, and his time is given to that purpose as a team member between departments. But as far as it being his budgetary responsibility, that has not been the case for 2 years.
Thank you.
So I believe that answers all of the holds that were out there. That having been said, I will call for a vote. All those in favor of the budget motion number one that was presented by Mrs. Sullivan, I'll ask you to say yes. Aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous vote.
Thank you.
Before we start on motion 2, which is the school's operating budget, the chair of the school committee has some comments she'd like to make.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator, for the opportunity to address the meeting. Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me in the back. A little bit. I'm not taking off my mask. Sorry. I'll just speak louder. Thank you. My name is Shannon Moza, and I'm the current chair of the Duxbury School Committee. Unfortunately, Dr. Antonucci couldn't be with us today as he is attending his son's college graduation. Our talented Director of Finance, Ms. Blake, and our Assistant Superintendent, Dr. Kluman, are here with us to address any FY22 budget questions. Echoing Mrs. Sullivan's introductory comments, I would just like to acknowledge that in addition to the challenge of the global pandemic that each of us has experienced on a daily basis for more than a year, the school community is recently struggling to address 2 extremely upsetting and deeply impactful crises. The school committee and the district are extremely grateful for the continued support of the broader Duxbury community as we all work together to develop a path forward that will enable our schools to continue to be a wonderful place for our children to grow and thrive. So thank you for your support.
All right. Mrs. Sullivan, a motion for Article 5, motion number 2.
I feel like I should insert that during my remarks, I was remiss in not mentioning that the school department, we've had years where struggling to make ends meet has been difficult. And the schools were tremendous partners in our work this year in understanding limited resources and confusing times and balancing their extraordinary needs against what was good for the town. And I feel badly that I did not include that in my remarks. They were great, and we really appreciate their attitude and their investment in the greater community. So thank you for that. School operating budget. I move that the town appropriate the sum of $38,498,353 as general fund school operating budget for the purposes and in the amounts specified below. And to meet said appropriation, raise and appropriate the sum of $38,498,353 to be expended under the direction of the school committee. The Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Second.
The further line 79, salaries, $31,229,274. Line 80, expenses, $7,269,079. Okay?
Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of the budget as presented by Mrs. Sullivan, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Motion 3, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $81,032,764 as the operating budget of the town for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, exclusive of the Water Department and Water Department debt service, for the purposes and in the amounts specified in the motions previously voted under this Article 5, and to meet this appropriation, raise and appropriate the sum of $79,836,936 and transfer the sum of $1,195,828 in accordance with the transfers voted in motions previously voted under this Article 5. Motion 1, general fund, just to recap, $42,534,411. Motion 2, school budget, $38,498,353 for the sum of $81,032,764. There you go.
So we have a motion and a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Are there any questions? All those in favor of this final motion, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. It's a unanimous vote. Mrs. Sullivan, Article number 5, Motion 4 for the Water Enterprise Fund.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $2,487,588 from Water Enterprise Fund revenue for the purposes and in the amounts specified below, and further, that $127,441 be raised from Water Enterprise Fund revenue to fund indirect costs associated with the Water Enterprise Fund appropriated in the general fund as identified in Article 5, Motion 1, to be expended under the direction of the town manager. Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Second.
Mrs. Sullivan, could I ask you to read the line items?
Oh, okay, sorry.
And we will, I'm sorry for interrupting. We'll treat this just like the operating budget. As we read the line items, if somebody has a question, would like further information, please say hold and we'll come back and visit it.
Okay, line 93, salaries, $833,429. Line 94, expenses, $1,141,111. Debt service water, line 95, principal payments, $408,909. Line 96, interest on bonded debt, $79,139. Interest on temporary notes, line 97, $15,000. Line 98, bond expense, $10,000. Subtotal was $513,048 for the previously mentioned total of $2,487,588.
Hearing no holds, I believe we're ready for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. The motion passes unanimously. Article number 6, we're starting to deal with some of the capital items for the town of Duxbury. It's divided into a number of separate motions, except when we deal with the capital budget, each one of these motions is the final vote. There is no final motion that ties everything together. It is in effect dividing the question into several discrete votes.
Okay, I move that the town appropriate the sum of $1,188,872 as the general government capital budget of the town for the purposes and in the amounts specified as follows, and to meet said appropriation, raise and appropriate the sum of $132,000, transfer the sum of $1,056,872, of which $843,406 shall come from free cash, $13,466 shall come from Waterways Improvement Receipts Fund, and $200,000 from ambulance receipts reserved for appropriation to be expended under the direction of the town manager. Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Second.
General Government, number 1, Domain Network Email Admin Reorganization, $25,025. Line 2, under Facilities Management, Chandler, HVAC Modernization. Total is the $876,300, see motion 3. That will be bonded, so it'll be under motion 3. General Government, Public Safety Police Department, line 3, Electronic Control Weapon, otherwise known as tasers, $96,180. Patrol car replacement, $59,718. Patrol, was there a hold? I'm sorry.
Yes, I heard a hold.
Sorry. Patrol car replacement, $59,718. Patrol truck replacement, $61,818. Under the fire department, line 7, ambulance replacement. Want me to read the number? Okay, no, it's okay. $372,000, that's what you're holding, yeah? Okay. Line 8, squad utility truck replacement, $80,000. Line 9, command car chief, $60,589. Harbor Master Department, line 10, replace 135 horsepower outboard engine, $13,466. Did I get off just this 3, right? Keep going. Okay, yep. Line 11, replace truck number 16, $97,866. Transfer station number 12, replace Volvo loader number 50, $240,240. Line 13, replace compactor, $22,252. There you go.
All right, we'll deal with the holds, starting with number
Line 3.
Number 3, electronic control weapon.
Brenda Bolin, 240 Kingstown Way. I'm wondering how many weapons purchased for the $96,000?
Defer to the chief to answer that question.
Good morning. It's 38 tasers, but what you have to understand, it's a packaged. It comes with the evidence.com computer system that downloads the tasers and maintains all the files for us. because legally we have to maintain those files anytime those tasers are used. Comes with all the cartridges, the training cartridges, the holsters, and all the associated equipment that comes along with those tasers.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Number 4, the hold on number 4.
Lester Lloyd, 21 Washington Street. I just wanted to express my appreciation that the police vehicles are now part of the capital budget. But I did want to ask a general question related to the fleet study update, the good work that had been done by the Finance Committee and is included in the Fiscal Advisory Committee notes. For these vehicles, and I'm going to be asking the same question about the fire, have we in fact centralized maintenance, created vehicle criteria, evaluation criteria, and generally view these with all other town vehicles as in terms of standards for general replacement?
Jim, did you want to speak to this?
Jim Lampert, 148 Washington Street. I'm Vice Chair of Fiscal Advisory Committee. Alex Chin, who is Chair, had the audacity to go out and visit a family for a wedding today. Basically, the fundamental answer to Lester's question is, this is still something of a work in progress. We are trying to get, and both Fiscal Advisory and the Finance Committee members have worked very hard in the last 2 years to put together a complete database with all the information that we need to make sure that it will be accurate, that it reflects professional judgments as to where we are on all of our vehicles and what the standards should be for replacement, and frankly, when do we need vehicles? When can we maintain them for longer as they are? I'd like to be able to give exactly this is what we are, this is exactly where we stand. I think I can fairly say that even though the whole program is a work in progress, we are certainly looking individually at everything that comes up for replacement in any given fiscal year.
Thank you. Again, I continue to encourage the good work to standardize replacement criteria for all of these vehicles. And I really had the same question on the hold for the ambulance, but again, I think that's been answered as best we can at the moment, unless there's further information we should have.
Okay, thank you. So we'll move on to line item number 10, the outboard motor.
I did not hear a hold on that.
There was no hold for that.
Unless you had a question. Did somebody have a hold on that? And if I missed it, I apologize. Nope, all
Nope.
set.
All right. So that having been said and the questions answered, I believe we're ready. I believe we're ready for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's unanimous. The ayes have it. Motion number 2, Mrs. Sullivan.
Subject, school capital budget. I move that the town appropriate the sum of $502,155 to the school capital budget for the purposes and in the amounts specified below, and to meet said appropriation transfer of $502,155 from free cash to be expended under the direction of the school committee. Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Second.
Line 13, instrument replacement, $22,049. Line 14, furniture replacement, $59,956. Sophos? Firewall replacement, $93,750. Murricky access point and switch replacement, $176,400. Turf field replacement, $150,000. Wish it was 100, yeah, wish it was, right. All set.
Having heard no holds, I believe we're ready for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Mrs. Sullivan, Article 6, Motion 3.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $867,300 to the school capital budget for the purposes and in the amount specified below for the Chandler HVAC modernization, and to meet said appropriation, borrow the sum of $867,300 to be expended under the direction of the town manager, and further to authorize the treasurer, with the approval of the Board of Selectmen, to borrow such sums pursuant to General Law, Chapter 44, Section 7 or 8, or any other enabling authority, and issue bonds and notes therefore and further, that any premium received upon the sale of any bonds or notes approved by this vote, less any premium applied to the payment of the costs of issuance of such bonds or notes, may be applied to the payment of costs approved by this vote in accordance with General Law, Chapter 44, Section 20, thereby reducing by a like amount the amount authorized to be borrowed to pay such costs. Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Second.
It is line 2, Chandler HVAC modernization, $867,300.
Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. The reason this was separated from the other motion where we did these other school items is because it's borrowing. Because it's a borrowing article, the law requires that we get a 2/3 vote. So far, we've had unanimous votes, so I'm hoping we don't have an issue with counting this one as well. So that having been said, I'm going to ask for a vote on Article 6, Motion Number 4. I'm sorry.
3.
Article 6, Motion Number 3.
3.
Motion 6, Article Number 3, which is the HVAC modernization. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Motion was unanimous vote. Mrs. Sullivan, Article Number 6, Motion Number 4.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $150,000 to the Water Enterprise Fund capital budget for the purposes and in the amount specified below, and to meet said appropriation, transfer the sum of $150,000 from Water Enterprise Fund retained earnings to be expended under the direction of the town manager. Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Second.
Line 19, water main rehabilitation, $150,000.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it.
You don't need me to do read the summary yet?
No, we don't need a summary. Article 7, Motion Number 1, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town appropriate the sum of $103,662 to the small equipment and minor services budget for the purposes and in the amount specified below, and to meet said appropriation, raise and appropriate the sum of $92,265, transfer the sum of $11,397 from Waterways Improvement Fund to be expended under the direction of the town manager. Finance Committee voted 7-0 to recommend.
Second.
Number 1, commercial valuation review, $8,000. Under IT, implementation help desk tracking application, $10,000. ISP consolidation, redesign and strategy, $5,417. Microsoft SharePoint, $10,000. Microsoft Project, 10 licenses, $6,600. Microsoft Office Training, 1 trainer and 25 trainees, $10,000. Bluebeam Software for Municipal Services, $3,088. Viewpoint Cloud and Bluebeam Integration Municipal Services, $4,400. Town Hall, install irrigation system, $11,235. Police Department, Life Pack defibrillator replacements, $13,706. Harbor Master, replace Marine Unit 4 collar, $6,835. Dual band portable, $3,150. Radio Pro IP gateway software, $1,412. Cemetery, replace 2012 hurricane blower, $9,819, for the total of $103,662.
Are there any questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article 7, Motion 2, Mrs. Sullivan.
Small Equipment and Minor Services, Motion 2. I move that the town appropriate the sum of $10,688 to the Small Equipment and Minor Services budget for the purposes and in the amounts specified below, and to meet said appropriation, raise and appropriate the sum of $10,688 to be expended under the direction of the school committee. Line 14, lighting panel in the PAC, $10,688.
Are there any questions?
Finance Committee voted to recommend 7-0, sorry.
Second.
Seeing no questions, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. It's unanimous. Article 8, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move to indefinitely postpone this article.
Second.
Finance Committee voted 6-0 to indefinitely postpone.
Any questions? I'm sorry, I need you to go. I can't hear you. Mrs. Sullivan, can we tell, do we have a reason why we're indefinitely postponing Article 8?
We had enough money from previous years' appropriations so that we did not have to appropriate additional funds this year. I know, I liked it too.
There we go. So I think we're ready for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Mrs. Sullivan?
Okay, I move that, I'm sorry. No. I move that the town raise and appropriate the sum of $900,000 to be expended under the direction of the town manager for the purpose of leasing Duxbury Beach, being that portion of land in the towns of Duxbury and Plymouth, owned by the Duxbury Beach Reservation, Inc., south of a line running approximately east to west along the northerly edge of the northerly parking area at the east end of the Powder Point Bridge, subject to an area of land excluded at High Pines used by the Duxbury Beach Reservation, and to authorize the Board of Selectmen or its designee to execute a lease on behalf of the town for the period beginning July 1st, 2021, and ending June 30th, 2022, on such terms and conditions the Board of Selectmen deems in the best interests of the town. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
I believe we have a question. And you'll be next.
Candace Martin, 59 Gurnett Road. I had a question just on the revenues versus the expenses. So we have the revenues reported in 2020. I know that was an odd year, but that showed a revenue of $900,000. At the time, the beach lease was $800,000. If we add in the salaries plus the vehicle capital costs, I know this year we don't have capital expenses for the vehicles, but those were vehicles that were transferred from other departments, and we're not getting that trade-in value. So has there been a full accounting of all the expenses versus the revenues? And I didn't see any requests for fee increases for the sticker sales. So I'm just concerned about the increases each year and whether our expenses are being covered.
So I am happy to report, and I I think John Adams perhaps can update it. The last I saw, we were up to $1.4 million in sticker sales, and that was, John, maybe you can give me
Yeah.
the date, but I'm sure the number is higher now. It was a bit ago. Last year was a unicorn. We work with the reservation. They have expenses as well that are increasing, and they own the beach. So we are doing, we did a very deep dive this year into the operations and have created a new department on the roster of things that you voted on. And part of the rationale for that was that we could answer those questions in a very clear and concise manner in the future. Previously, many of the costs of the beach were pulled from departments. You had it pulled from DPW, you had it pulled from the police, you'd have it pulled from the fire department. Many different departments contributed, the harbor master. And because of the fact that they were all pulled from these different, it was very difficult to codify and to answer a question that should be a simple ask, which was one of the primary motivations on creating a beach operations department, so that we can, in the future, very clearly explain our costs and our versus what we capture in sticker sales. I will tell you that everybody worked really hard on it. Gordon Cushing has taken over as the department head and has done hero's work in helping develop the budget and also to set up this new department. And we have staffed it with, what's Ryan's last name? Oh, I'm terrible. I'm blanking on his last name. And who did start in time to help us get ready for this year. One of the things that we discovered in our conversation over the course from last summer all the way through is that it's ridiculous that the lease starts in the middle of the season, and that we need to work with the reservation and the selectmen and perhaps have that lease be a calendar lease as opposed to a fiscal year lease. But although this is a lot of double talk telling you I can't answer that directly, I will tell you that we have done everything possible to make it so that that is going to be transparent in the future.
Great, thank you.
And I believe Mr. Adams, our finance director, has some information.
Yeah, a lot of what Betsy said, obviously, is we've made a lot of changes over the past few years. There's been little consistency of how we've done one year to the next. But over the last 2 years, we've tried to make this a cost center in and of itself, so that we can track costs at the beach going forward. I know that currently we have had some great collections in the months of March and April, over $600,000 each month. So we're looking at $1,382,000 in collections so far this year. And if you look at our expenses, we have about $850,000 for the beach lease and about $210,000 for that cost center. So we are obviously still making revenue on this deal, with the anomaly year, of course, due to the pandemic and the closing of the beach.
Thank you.
Brenda Bullen, 290 Kingstown Way. I share some of the concerns of the previous speaker. My question is, does the cost of replenishment sand contribute significantly to this increase?
No, it's not part of this budget.
Thank you.
Sir.
Larry DeLay, 6 East Pine Road. I have 2 questions and just a comment. What is the town's contingency plan should the voters vote this down? Will the reservation be doing stickers, et cetera? Those are my questions. My comment is really complicated around taxpayers paying for the bridge repairs, then leasing with tax money, $900,000, goes up 50, it's going up $50,000 next year, another $50,000. And at what point does it become not feasible for the town to continue to have this operation? Article 14 expands bylaws, which I'll get back to later. And there seems to be, for me, a conflict between what's private and a joint relationship here with a business which continues to change? Those are my questions.
I'm totally unclear on what your question was.
What's your contingency plan if this vote doesn't pass? That's the first question.
There is no contingency plan because there is no expectation that the town would cut off its nose to spite its face.
I'm sorry, I thought voting determined that.
Right? They do. And I would be, there is not a contingency plan because since a group of citizens got together to buy the land to preserve for the use and enjoyment of the community, we have worked with the reservation to provide that service. So honestly, I may be a little chagrined, but it does not really enter into the conversation that the town meeting would get together and say, not this year.
Wow.
I'm being honest. I'm not trying to be flippant. I'm really being honest.
Well, I believe that there was some discussion at meetings this winter about whether or not, given the $50,000 increase and the continued increase, what the town's position would be. So
We don't
members
roll
up
over
here-
and play dead. The selectmen negotiate the lease. But your question is, do we have a contingency plan if the town meeting votes down the lease?
Yeah, if
And
the-
my answer is no.
If the town chose to save $900,000, there is no contingency plan. Okay.
And lose the ability to use the beach.
No,
Because
that
it's
shifts-
private property.
It shifts the burden onto the reservation, who has the bathhouse and a restaurant, to let them run their own beach if that was the long-range
Sir.
plan.
Betsy,
Okay, I'll
I think
stop.
we've answered the question. And so we can certainly move on to another question if it's out there. Seeing no other question, I'm going to ask for a vote. This is a 2/3 vote, so I'm hoping we get a clear result. All those in favor of Article 9 as presented, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? One no, all the rest were yes. I take it to be a 2/3, call it a 2/3 vote. Article number 10.
I move that the town raise and appropriate the sum of $15,000 to fund the town of Duxbury's 4th of July parade, ceremonies, and related activities to be expended under the direction of the town manager. Finance Committee voted 6-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article number 11. Article number 11 is a sense of the community vote that we will be taking. There's no money involved.
I move that the town vote to authorize the town clerk of Duxbury to forward the text of this article as printed in the warrant to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission, NRC, Governor Charlie Baker, Attorney General Maura Healey, Duxbury State and federal delegations, to all select boards within the emergency planning zone of Pilgrim, NPS, to Holtec Decommissioning International LLC, and to Holtec Pilgrim LLC, so the intent and needs of the citizens of Duxbury are widely known. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Yes, I'll be as brief as possible. The article, good news, requires no money expended by the town. It's simply a public safety message to inform political leaders nationally, statewide, and from local towns to get on the bandwagon and appreciate what the issues are and what they should be asking for doing to reduce risk. All the spent fuel assemblies that have been used to generate electricity at Pilgrim since 1972 that exceeds 4,000 assemblies are on site 6 miles across the bay and will remain there indefinitely because there are no off-site solutions. This material is the most toxic material known to mankind. It is eventually slated for a deep underground repository to be kept away from people for 250,000 years or more. At present, practically all the fuel is out of the spent fuel pool and will be all out by the end of this year. That's good news because the spent fuel pool requires an active system where the dry casks are passive, but they are safer than a pool, but they're not without risk. These casks are about 18 feet tall. They have an exterior concrete overpack, and the interior is a very thin, spent metal canister, stainless steel. It's only a ½ inch thick. Each one contains, these canisters, 68 assemblies. What we're concerned about are whether the canisters are going to leak. Leak either from corrosion, because we know that the material that the canisters are made of are subject to corrosion, particularly in a salt atmosphere, and the casks are all stored outside and will be subject to salt for many years into the future. We're also concerned there could be a crack due to a manufacturing defect. The manufacturer only guarantees the canisters for 25 years, and they will be on site much longer than 25 years. We're concerned also that the aging management program inspections is insufficient. The plan of Holtec is simply to examine, starting in 2034, one cask every 5 years, and they have provided no assurance whether that canister will be examined at Pilgrim or they are allowed to examine just one at another of their sites. That, to us, is clearly insufficient. Plus, we have asked and continue to ask how much of that canister is inspected, 5%, 10%, the whole, and how can they do it? We have not gotten any answers. So we're concerned about radiation leaks from corrosion, suggested fixes, a more robust inspection plan, real-time monitors on each cask that would be hooked into the state, so we would have some oversight. Storing overpacks would be like giant Band-Aids on site, etc. We're largely concerned about a security threat because these casks are lined up on a pad in full view, 1 football field distant from a public road. If you want to drive down Rocky Hill Road in Plymouth, you can see where they are stored. What do they have around them? A 4-foot wall. But they are 18 feet high, and the expert hired by the Massachusetts Attorney General has testified that they are vulnerable from weapons that are available today, shot off-site. So, therefore, we have asked, the Attorney General asked also, unsuccessfully, that there be a higher wall placed around the cast to prevent line-of-sight attack, and ideally put into a reinforced building, as is done in Europe and Japan. However, we can see what we can do about that. So continue to persist. That is really what our committee is all about. And so I think I was as brief as possible. However, you can pick up one of 250 of these, bring them home to your friends, and always feel welcome at our monthly meetings, or to contact us, or to attend the nuclear Nuclear Citizens Advisory Board meetings that are held in Plymouth once a month. So any questions, please get in touch. And Becky Chen, the co-chair, will add anything I've forgotten.
You don't need to hear more. Okay.
What's that? We did? Okay.
Thank you. So I believe we're ready for a vote. All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article number 12, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town vote to accept the provisions of Mass General Law, Chapter 59, Subchapter 5, Clause 22nd H, inserted by Chapter 218 of the Acts of 2018, known as an act relative to veterans' benefits, rights, appreciation, validation, and enforcement, otherwise known as the BRAVE Act, as printed in the warrant. Finance Committee voted 6-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions or discussions about this article? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's unanimous. Article 13, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town vote to increase the limit on ambulance receipts credited to Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 5F, ambulance receipts, reserved for appropriation account from $100,000 to an amount equal to 20% of gross ambulance receipts annually, and to authorize the town manager to expend such funds for the purchasing, hiring, maintaining, and operating of such ambulances, including maturing debt and interest, as printed in the warrant. Finance Committee voted 7-1 to recommend.
Are there any questions? Hearing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Article 14, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town vote to amend general bylaw by adding a new section entitled Section 7.26 Beach Use, as printed in the warrant. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Does the proponent of this article plan to make a presentation? Only if questions arise. I know that we have an amendment, that we have a citizen, they want to make it, so I guess at this point I'll allow them to make the amendment. Please. And before Mrs. Sheehan starts with her amendment, if you have the warrant, please go to page 29 in the warrant, Article 13, Article 14 at the bottom of the page. That's where this starts. If you want to follow along with the amendment that she's looking to make, which having shared with me before the meeting, I know affects the language on the very top of page 30. In fact, the very last sentence in the paragraph at the top of page 30. Mrs. Sheehan.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. I'm Susanna Sheehan of 122 Powder Point Avenue. I'd like to offer the following amendment. I'd like to have the last sentence in the beach definitions paragraph in section 7.26.1, beach use general bylaw amendment, addition of a new section on page 30 of the annual town meeting warrant that reads, this includes town landings that are commonly accepted as bathing beaches, be deleted from this section. And if I may, I'd like to explain my reason for this. In reading through this new bylaw, it contains rules and regulations that really pertain only to Duxbury Beach and have nothing to do with town landings. Every paragraph in this bylaw references something about Duxbury Beach, such as overstand permits, shorebird monitors, beach officials, speeding, and unauthorized vehicle access. None of these things and nothing in this law relates to any of the town landings, which are town property and are under town control. They're not private like Duxbury Beach. None of the town landings are used like Duxbury Beach is, with thousands of people and hundreds of cars on them, and therefore they do not need to be under the control of this new bylaw. I move that this sentence be deleted from the beach definitions paragraph. Thank you very much for your time.
Is there a second to that amendment? We have a motion and a second. So now we will discuss the amendment, not the bulk of the article. I believe our police chief has some comments.
All right, the intention of this bylaw is obviously to protect valuable resources of the beach and some of the adjacent property. So one of the frustrations we have at the town landings and the parking areas is that we don't have a lot of enforcement capabilities down there. So when we get called for problems down at those areas, the officers don't have a lot of enforcement that they can that can take place. So that it leads to a lot of frustration for the callers. Folks will call us, and there's problems at the landings or problems in the parking areas, and we get down there, we can't do anything about it. So the reason we sort of expanded this bylaw to include those areas is just to give us some capability to conduct enforcement of those areas. It's much like the entire bylaw. It's not, we're looking to first educate and then hopefully persuade people to act responsibly in protecting the resources, the beach, and respectfully treating our employees. So that's why I think the entirety of the bylaw should stand, in my opinion, as written. I think it should stay because it gives us those enforcement capabilities. Otherwise, our hands are tied when we get down to problems at the landings and the parking areas.
Mr. Lambert.
James Lambert, 148 Washington Street, and I think I have a question for town council. As I read this definition, deleting that last sentence would have absolutely no effect, since, as the woman proposing the amendment said, this is already encompassed within the previous sentence. Am I correct or wrong?
Yeah. Not an attorney, but sounds like it.
Through you, Mr. Moderator. Good morning, everybody. As you know, my name is Jeff Blake, and I'm town council. To the previous speaker's question, I think that by leaving the sentence, the last sentence in, it really takes out any possible ambiguities. So while I agree with the previous speaker that there could be an interpretation that says it's everything, by keeping that second sentence in, there is no ambiguity, and it is pertaining to, as this says, town landings that are commonly accepted as bathing beaches.
Mr. Moderator?
Mrs. Sheehan. Yes, Mrs. Sheehan, I'm sorry.
What I don't think the town officials understand right now is that town landings are not beaches. They are pathways, historic pathways to the water, some of which date back to the 1700s. In some cases, there are lovely sandy beaches, and they are used for swimming, and they are used as beaches. But not all town landings are. And to lump all of town landings into this bylaw and say that, you've got a recreation director, a beach official, lead beach ranger, and other people that can come down to these town landings and enforce this bylaw, which has nothing to do with what goes on at town landings, I just don't think it's correct. I understand what the police chief wants to do. But once again, Duxbury Beach is private property. Town landings are town property. I don't see why the police should have any difficulties either ticketing people for parking or breaking up fights or anything else that's going on at these town landings. And most town landings do not have a lot of parking at them. I just think that including town landings, which, by the way, have their own section in the Duxbury the Duxbury bylaws, if that's something the town wants to do, if they want to regulate activity at the town landing, then perhaps what they ought to do is set up a new town landings committee. The last one, I think, was in 1972, that did a report to the town and go about it that way. But to have a whole new bylaw that really pertains to Duxbury Beach and not to the town landings, and to lump this in, I just don't think is the right thing to do at this point.
Thank you. Sir? And then to you, Mrs. Hines.
Larry DeLay, 6 East Pine Road. I just had a question of clarification. In that same first section, it talks about any beach lands, adjacent parking area, and access roads under the care and control of the town. Is Gurnett Road, in fact, a public road north from the Marshfield line?
I'm gonna ask you to hang on to that question
Okay,
until
I wasn't sure.
we're dealing
Yes.
with the amendment at this point.
That's fine.
We'll get to that when we actually get to the article.
Martha Himes, 127 Vine Street. I would like to echo Mrs. Sheehan's question regarding what enforcement difficulties are taking place at the landings that need to be covered by this article. I don't understand why the police do not have
Okay.
enforcement at public town spaces.
Well, I think the chief is gonna have an answer for you.
So, of course, we have, certain Massachusetts general laws that we can adhere to, but there's certain things that happen at the landings. We've had vehicles go off into the sanded area and get stuck. We can't do anything about that without this bylaw. If there's a restricted area for some reason, if there's some sort of I'm trying to think of the term, putting sand onto the beach, I'm sorry, I can't think of the term. It's a restricted area, and a vehicle goes into that, or people go into that, we can't do anything about it. Like I said, we get called a lot of times in the summer to these areas, and there's just, our hands are tied. So this is just, I like to point out, if you're not doing anything wrong, you're not going to have issues with this. So if you're responsibly using these areas, you're not going to be issues. It's for the very small percentage of people that choose to misuse these areas. That's what we're trying to protect these areas for all the residents and for the town at the end of the day. So I think it just helps us in enforcing that, and it sends a message that, these areas are important to us, and we're going to protect them at all times.
Mrs. Sheehan.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. So, once again, I just don't feel like this belongs. But if you've actually read the bylaw, this proposed bylaw, and look at it carefully, does that mean that we're going to need permits, Duxbury Beach permits to park at these town landings? Does it mean, it goes on about speeding, unauthorized vehicle access to a beach, restrictions. I just don't see the need to regulate town landings right now. Thank you very much.
Okay. Mrs. McNabb.
Thank you. I'm actually asking a question as a resident. So Amy McNabb, 269 Old Toby Garden Street. And I guess I can't get through a town meeting without doing this. I would like a little bit more clarification from the police chief, if possible. Is this, if I'm understanding this correctly, right now, if a vehicle goes into the sand, we are unable, or our police department is unable to issue a ticket of some sort to this person? I feel like it's kind of putting I'm not sure exactly why we are unable right now in any fashion to not enforce public safety laws at any of the town landings. So I'm still finding myself questioning why it's appropriate to have this language in as the speaker to the amendment is suggesting.
Sure. There's nothing currently that we can use in the example that you used to charge that individual. So if somebody were to misuse that piece of property like that, our hands are somewhat tied. I mean, we can come down, we can assist, we can tow the vehicle, get the vehicle off the beach, but there's not going to be any charges. And it's not going to be, you know, find it hard for the town to recoup the costs associated with repairing that area, because there's nothing for us to sort of charge that person with at this time. So it's frustrating to us. It's just, like I say, we get called down there, our hands are tied. This is just a sort of a tool so that we can hopefully mediate, you know, these situations so that people will not misuse these properties.
Just one last comment, sorry to drag this on.
Go right ahead.
The town landings in town are Mattakeesit Court at the Town Pier, Cove Street, Hardin Hill, Howlands Landing, Drew Salt Works at the edge of Bay Pond Road, Simeon Sewell's and Clark Peterson's landings off Powder Point Avenue, Powder Point Bridge landings, both north and south sides, Anchorage Lane off St. George Street, Bluefish River, Windsor Street, Water Street, Jocelyn Ave landings, Landing Road, Hicks Point Road, and Ford Stand off of Ocean Road North. There's also ways to the water, including Island Creek Pond, Bay Farm, Miles Standish Homestead, Samoset Road, Sagamore Road, Elder Bruce Road, Massasoit Road. So I think you can understand these are listed town landings. This would affect all of them.
Okay. I feel like we've probably had enough discussion at this point. Are people ready for a vote? Okay. We're voting on the amendment, whether we will include town landings or not in the definition of beach. We will then get to vote on the main article. So, voting on the amendment only. All those in favor? If you are in favor of removing that language, you want to vote yes. If you want to leave that language in the article, in the warrant, you want to vote no. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes.
And all those opposed? No. So I think we're going to use our electronic balloting for this one. So we'll do that one again.
Is it majority for changing?
This is a majority vote on the amendment.
Okay.
I'm sorry, power on the bottom, if your device has gone to sleep on you, bottom right-hand button wakes it up. We're not quite ready
Not
yet.
yet.
This has gone to sleep. You're all set? Okay. You can now vote yes if you're in favor of the amendment is 1, no is 2. Again, voting is open, 1 for yes, 2 for no. Voting is closed. We had 90 people vote. We had 37 yes, 53 no. The amendment fails. We're now on to into the article itself, the main motion. Are there any questions, discussions about the main motion? Sir.
Larry DeLay, 6 East Pine Road. I'm just trying to clarify Gurnett Road, which passes northerly from the Marshfield-Duxbury line. South, it goes the entire length out to Saquish, that it is in fact a public town road the entire distance. And the reason I ask is because of legal rights, both for the town, the police, etc. My understanding is it's a right-of-way road, and the entire road of Gurnett Road, which is listed on all the maps as Gurnett Road, is in fact a town-owned road.
I'm hoping our police chief can give you an answer.
So legally, it's not. It's not. And one of the problems.
I'm sorry, legally what is not?
It's not a public way.
It's not a public way.
Right, not considered. And one of the other parts about putting these bylaws in place, We've had problems because we've issued in the past, historically, bylaws have been issued down on the beach, speeding on the roadways down there, also OUIs, operating under the influence of alcohols. Interestingly enough, at District Court down in Plymouth, we've won some of those and we've lost some of those. So it depends upon the magistrate. They're deciphering whether it's a public way or not. So moving forward with these bylaws, these bylaws like speeding, things like that, it will be adhered to down in District Court because it's now recognized as an official bylaw. So that was another part about building these bylaws, because we were having a lot of issues at District Court regarding some of the historically issued citations down there.
Thank you. Does that answer your question?
No. Gurnett Road is a public road for part of it, so I'm asking the town, that entire road, Gurnett Road, is it public or is it private? Because you can't have a road both be public and private according to Massachusetts law. And according to all the town maps, it shows Gurnett Road. And I understand what the police chief is saying, but it has been there since the 1800s when the right-of-way was established. And my understanding of the law is it is in fact owned by the town and is a right-of-way. So, a question for another time, if not today.
It may well be a question for another day. Having said that, we have our planning director seems to have something she can add.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. While it is shown on the maps, it is a private way. It's not a public road. It's something where in Massachusetts you have roads that are used and maintained where the town can do plowing, things like that. But it's still a private road in the town of Duxbury. And just to clarify, portions of a road can be public and portions of a road can be private, and the road can still exist as one single road.
All right. Any other questions, discussion, debate on this article? I think we're ready for a vote. And we'll use electronic voting again for this. So please pull out your handheld device. 1 if you're in favor of the article, 2 if you're opposed to the article. And voting is now open. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Voting is open. Yep. We're gonna try that again. The light's on. We can now vote. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Please.
It said that I voted before it was received. Before the light came on.
It may have said received, but it did not say, probably did not say yes above it. So we're voting again. And so at this point, voting is closed. It is overwhelmingly voted for. We had 89 votes, almost exactly matches the total before when we had 90. Only in this case, it is 73 yes, 16 no. So the motion carries, the bylaw passes. It's getting on to noontime. We have many articles left to go, but feels like we should be able to finish town meeting today and not spend our Sunday here together. Are people interested in dealing with the Article 15 Powder Point Bridge repairs, or we just as soon can, or take a break? All those in favor of,
Pretty straightforward. Keep going.
keep going. Oh, fine with me. Article 15, PowerPoint Bridge repairs, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $287,200 for the purpose of funding emergency repairs to be made to the Powder Point Bridge, including all incidental and related expenses, and to meet said appropriation, transfer the sum of $287,200 from free cash to be expended under the direction of the town manager. Finance Committee voted 6-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions or discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed, the ayes have it. Article 16, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town vote to authorize the Board of Selectmen to petition the General Court for special legislation, and provided further that the General Court may make clerical or editorial changes of form only to the bill, unless the Board of Selectmen approves amendments to the bill before enactment by the General Court, and that the Board of Selectmen is authorized to approve amendments which shall be within the scope of the general public objectives of the petition as printed in the warrant. This is in regard to changing the name from Selectmen to Select Board. Finance Committee voted 6-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, motion's unanimous. It passes.
I move
Article 17, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town vote to amend the general bylaws by authorizing the revolving fund annual expenditure limits for fiscal year 2022, as shown in the table below and as printed in the warrant. Senior Center, $175,000, no change. Jaycox Tree Farm, $20,000 to $30,000. Hazardous Materials Response, $50,000, no change. Regional Dispatch Services, $150,000 to $700,000. Finance Committee voted 6-0 to recommend.
Second.
Do we have any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. It's a majority vote.
Bay Ave Gurnett Road Beach Nourishment Project.
Article 18.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I thought you had said that. I move that the town vote to, A, authorize the Select Board to acquire by purchase, gift, and/or eminent domain, and/or such terms as the Select Board deems appropriate, permanent and temporary easements in a portion or portions of the parcels of land located on Duxbury Beach, which portion or portions consist of I, the land seaward of the seawall showing on a plan entitled Duxbury Beach Seawall Easement Plan of Land in Duxbury, Mass., prepared by Bryant Associates, Inc., dated June 24th, 1994, and recorded with the Plymouth Registry of Deeds in Plan Book 39, page 360. And 2, for lots identified as assessors parcels 137-901-019, 137-901-0138, 137-901-060, sorry, 137-901-062, 137-901-063, and 137-901-064. Those portions known as easement area on a plan entitled Dune Restoration at Horseshoe Beach, prepared by Woods Hole Group, and land seaward thereof, all for the purpose of undertaking a beach nourishment and dune restoration and replenishment project, including, without limitation, the right to construct, preserve, inspect, operate, maintain, repair, rehabilitate, and replace a beach and dune system and other erosion control and storm damage reduction measures, and appurtenances thereto, including the right to deposit sand, plant vegetation, for lots identified under 2, alter the contours on land, construct berms and dunes, nourish and re-nourish periodically, move, store, and remove equipment and supplies, erect, maintain, and remove silt screens and sand fences for lots identified under 2, erect and/or remove temporary structures, facilitate preservation of dunes and vegetation through the limitation of access to dune areas, and remove from said land any structures, objects, and/or obstructions, and for any and all other uses and/or purposes related thereto. B, authorize the Board of Selectmen, Select Board, to acquire by purchase, gift, and/or eminent domain permanent easements in all of the foregoing lots seaward of the current mean high water mark for public pedestrian access purposes, and further, C, authorize the Board of Selectmen, Select Board, to enter into all agreements, apply for and expend gifts and/or grants for the foregoing purpose, and take any and all actions as may be necessary or appropriate to effectuate the foregoing purposes. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Thank you. Sir, you have a question, I'm guessing.
Yes. Hi, Thomas Nee, 590 Bay Road. I'm generally supportive of beach nourishment plan. It sounds good. I just have a question. At the beginning of the motion, it talks about temporary and permanent easements, and then the last paragraph, it talks about just permanent easements. What is a temporary easement?
I would defer to council, or town planner.
Town council will answer that question. Mr. Blake.
Thank you, Mr. Moderator. Through you, Mr. Moderator, as you guys know, my name is Jeff Blake. The difference between a temporary easement and a permanent easement would be just like it sounds. For example, we may need portions of the beach that we will continue to have to go on, and we will continue to put structures or whatever else that may be needed, and we would have to do that on, like I say, a continuing basis. Then there may be other sections that we would just need the ability to access that particular area or areas. So what we would do is we would get a temporary permission easement to use those areas. Once we've done what we need to do, then we would no longer need that, so we would no longer need that easement. So that would be the temporary. The permanent would be those areas where we would need to be constantly using those areas throughout the entire time.
Are there any other questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor of Article 18, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It's a unanimous vote.
I move to,
Article 19.
I move to indefinitely postpone this article.
Second.
Finance Committee voted 7-1 to indefinitely postpone. The article was replaced by an article previously voted at the special town meeting.
Any questions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article number 20.
I move that the town vote to appropriate the sum of $117,000 for the purpose of funding and engineering, design, and construction oversight and any and all incidental or related costs of the proposed improvements to the intersection of Route 3A, Tremont Street with Route 3, Pilgrim Highway, as further identified in the Old Colony Planning Council MBO Transportation Improvement Plan, otherwise known as TIP, as MassDOT project number 606002, and to meet said appropriation, transfer the sum of $117,000 from free cash to be expended under the direction of the planning director. Finance Committee voted 9-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article 21.
I move that the town vote to amend the general bylaws by creating the following new local historic districts to be administered through the Duxbury General Bylaw, Chapter 12, and to update the official local historic district maps of the town of Duxbury to include the local historic districts as set forth below and as printed in the warrant. Tarkiln, 245 Summer Street. Bradford, 900 Tremont Street. Mr. and Mrs. McGee. Windsor, 397 Washington Street, Waterfront World HQ LLC. Windsor, 405 Washington Street, Ditch Digger LLC. Powder Point, 14 Powder Point Ave, Mr. and Mrs. Gatar. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions? This will take a 2/3 vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? It is unanimous. The ayes have it. Article 22.
For those following along with the motions, the planning director had given me a change to the motion that will be read.
Yes.
Okay. I move that the town vote to amend the Town of Duxbury zoning bylaws and official zoning map by amending sections 202.1 by striking the date 11/4/2016 and replacing it with as further described in section 402.2 flood hazard areas overlay district boundaries as shown in the warrant, and by deleting the existing section 402 in its entirety and replacing with a new section 402 flood hazard areas overlay district as printed in the warrant. Finance Committee did not vote the amended language, but did vote the original language 9-0 to recommend.
Second.
And is there a report from the zoning board?
The planning board's report is published for you. The planning board held a public hearing and voted unanimously in support of the article. The motion does not change the language in the warrant, but it reflects replacement of what we had in the warrant with what's there in your paragraph as printed. So it's just an administrative change as far as the motion.
Thank you. Are there any questions?
It's just
Sensing we're prepared to vote, I'll ask for a vote on Article 22. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. It is unanimous. Article 23. Thank you. The next several articles, 23 through 27, all deal with CPC funds in one way or another, or projects. And Ms. Morris will make a presentation that will really encompass conversations on almost all of those, wherever you're most comfortable. Come on down, please.
What time is it? Well, good afternoon. I'm Holly Morris. I'm the chair of the Community Preservation Committee. I represent a committee of 7 members, but actually it's 6 right now because Cindy Ladd-Fiorini is now a member of the Select Board. So Planning Board, we need a representative from you. Other members of the board are Kathy Cross, Open Space Committee, Tag Carpenter, Historic Commission, Paul McCormick, Housing Authority, Kathy Palmer, Member at Large, Tony Kelso, Member at Large, and Town Historian, myself, Conservation Commission. The CPC reviewed 3 proposals that met the requirements of the Community Preservation Act. Transfer of CPA funds to the Duxbury Affordable Housing Trust, the rehabilitation of the historic American Legion building, and transfer of CPA funds to the Conservation Fund. All proposals were rigorously vetted and have the approval of the CPC. Article 23 is the annual appropriation for the committee's administrative expenses. This is capped at 5% of annual receipts, and unused funds are returned to the Duxbury CPA General Fund. The appropriation is for $37,582. Article 24 is the annual appropriation of 30% of annual receipts and to deposit 10% into each of the three purposes: open space, affordable housing, and historic preservation. We are appropriating $225,490.50 from the CPA fund for fiscal year '22 and depositing $75,163.50 into each of the three accounts. At the August special town meeting, voters approved the appropriation of $2,350,000 for the purchase of 761 Temple Street, which is the Harrington property. Each of the accounts, open space, affordable housing, and historic preservation, were drawn down to $100,000. We borrowed currently on a short-term basis $625,000, which is to be paid from the CPA undesignated fund balance. Interest on this loan is $6,250. Article 25 is the transfer of $100,000 from the CPA Housing Reserve to the Duxbury Affordable Housing Trust. The trust will be signing an agreement with the town to ensure accountability. Article 26 is the transfer of $25,100 from the CPA Historic Reserve to the American Legion for the rehabilitation, repair, and painting of the American Legion building at 5 West Street. Lead paint will be removed, wood trim, and ornamentation will be repaired or replaced. This building was originally the Duxbury Millbrook one-room schoolhouse, erected in 1898, and is listed on the Mass Historical Commission website. We are often asked why CPA money is given to private organizations for historic preservation, restoration, or rehabilitation. First of all, it is allowed under the Act if the CPC determines that the organization serves an important public purpose. As an additional layer of security, the Legion will be required to sign an agreement that is in the best interest of the town, requiring full payment of the grant in the event of negligent or intentional acts or omissions. The Legion assists over 770 veterans that live in Duxbury and has a paid membership of 240 veterans, which are both men and women, and an additional 350 of non-military members. It raises funds for Scouts, both boys and girls, and Eagle Scout projects, participates in a number of sports teams, and arranges the annual military band concert. The Legion adds that funding of this project will allow for hosting of more sports and activities for children. Article 27 is the transfer of $50,000 from the CPA Open Space Reserve to the Conservation Fund. Similar appropriations were approved in 2004, 2010, 2014, and 2018. This allows for any purpose authorized under the Massachusetts Conservation Commission Act and the Community Preservation Act. Duxbury was at the forefront of this use of CPA funds, and it is used as an example in many other communities. There were handouts that were passed out on the table, one of which shows a bar graph of local surcharge receipts and state matching funds. We are anticipating fiscal year '22 surcharge revenues to increase 3% from the current fiscal year. John Adams, thank you very much, is projecting a conservative state trust fund match of 29%, which is an extremely good return on our money. The trust fund receives its funding from the Registry of Deeds, and higher fees and a strong real estate market have been favorable for CPA communities. Estimated surcharge receipts for fiscal year '22 are $581,635, an estimated state trust fund match of $170,000. There is also a pie chart of CPA expenditures on that handout. We have participated in the CPA program for 19 years, which to me has flown by so fast. We have appropriated nearly $25,467,000, which includes $9,754,000 from the state matching CPA trust fund. That's a 38% of the appropriations. State and federal grants and donations of money and supplies accounted for an additional $4.9 million to our many projects benefiting every neighborhood in town. The voters have put the lion's share toward the protection of open space. Pursuant to Duxbury Open Space Plan, we have secured over 850 acres of land with a focus on the protection of our groundwater and the rivers and streams that empty into our beautiful bay. And this bay is absolutely vital to our economy in this town. Open space enables us to be better prepared for climate change and provides wildlife corridors that are interrupted by development. Farmland, which provides locally sourced food and income, and I'm sure many of you became more aware of the importance of our conservation lands and open spaces during the pandemic. Parking lots were full and there was overflow parking along all the streets. What's interesting, and that was 7 days a week, what's interesting is this was happening before the pandemic, which really is a testament to the importance of these lands. We have much more work to be done. Farmers and large landowners are under increasing pressure from developers to sell, which is why we must protect what we can of the remaining natural resources that are connected to the open spaces and farmland that we currently hold. Historic structures and landscapes need to be preserved, and suitable land is needed for housing. Recreational needs for all ages must be considered. The funding of the pickleball courts at Tarkiln have been a huge success. Duxbury is a unique town with an extraordinary maritime and farming history. The vistas and open spaces that you enjoy in this town are what was gifted to us and what you all have protected. We cannot lose sight of our ongoing responsibility to the next generations. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Sullivan?
I move that the town, upon recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee, appropriate the sum of $37,582 from the Community Preservation Act Fund of FY 2022 anticipated revenues for the purpose of meeting the requirements of the Community Preservation Act in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 44B, for the administrative expenses and charges for operation of the Community Preservation Committee, all for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2021, and ending June 30th, 2022, inclusive. Finance Committee voted 6-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor of Article 23, please say yes. Aye. Excuse me. All those opposed? It's a unanimous vote. Article 24, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town, upon recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee, appropriate the sum of $231,740.50 from the Community Preservation Act Fund, FY22, anticipated revenues for the purpose of meeting the requirements of the Community Preservation Act, Mass General Law, Chapter 44B, Section 6, with $75,163.50 of said amount reserved for open space, $75,163.50 of said amount reserved for community housing, affordable, and $73,163.50 of said amount reserved for historic resources preservation, and further appropriate the sum of $6,250 as debt service on the bond issued under Article 1 of the March 16, 2020 special town meeting held on August 1st, 2020. Finance Committee voted 6-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. I call it a unanimous vote. Article 25, please.
I move that the town, upon recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee, appropriate the sum of $100,000 from the Community Preservation Fund Housing Reserve to the Duxbury Affordable Housing Trust to implement the housing plan production plan on terms deemed by the Selectmen, Select Board, to be in the best interest of the town. Finance Committee voted 6-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, it's unanimous vote. Article 26, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town, upon recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee, appropriate the sum of $25,100 from the Community Preservation Fund, Historic Resources Reserve, to rehabilitate, repair, and paint the Historic American Legion, and further to authorize the Board of Selectmen, Select Board, to enter into a grant agreement with Duxbury American Legion Post 223 on terms deemed by the Selectmen, Select Board to be in the best interest of the town. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Are there any questions? Call for a vote. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it, it's a unanimous vote. Article 27, Mrs. Sullivan.
I move that the town, upon recommendation of the Community Preservation Committee, raise and appropriate and/or transfer from available funds the sum of $50,000 from the Community Preservation Fund, Open Space Reserve, to the Conservation Fund, to be used under the direction of the Conservation Commission for any purpose authorized by General Law, Chapter 40, Section 8C, and General Law, Chapter 44B. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Any questions or discussions? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? The ayes have it. Article 28 is a citizen's petition, but it does deal with a zoning issue. Did the zoning board hold a public hearing on this?
Yes, Mr. Moderator, the Planning Board held a public hearing and unanimously voted not to support the article, rather to bring back a petition in the next town meeting, which might take into some consideration the concerns that the Planning Board had.
Thank you. Is there anybody here to speak for this article?
Hi, Alicia Babcock, 9 Ocean Road South, Chair of the Seawall Committee. After conversations with the Finance Committee and the Planning Board, we respectfully request Article 28 to be indefinitely postponed on behalf of the citizens that petitioned this article, with the hope that the Planning Board will bring this back next year at Town Meeting 2022.
So the petitioner is asking that it be indefinitely postponed.
Correct.
Finance Committee agree with that?
Yes.
So we now have a motion for indefinite postponement on Article number 28. It's a majority vote. All those in favor of indefinite postponement, say aye.
Second.
Aye.
Second.
Motion was made and seconded. Thank you. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. Article 29, a citizen's petition.
I move that the town vote to amend the town general bylaws as amended through September 30th, 2019, and further amended by town meeting vote on August 1st, 2020, by adding a new bylaw provision, 7.28, storage of property at Shipyard Lane, restricting the right of persons and entities to leave or store personal property on the beach at the end of Shipyard Lane, in parking lot at the end of Shipyard Lane, and/or on the grass park area at the end of Shipyard Lane as printed in the warrant. Finance Committee voted 8-0 to recommend.
Second.
Mrs. Morris, is this your article?
No, but I would, unless the proponent would like to state her article first, and I'd like to make an amendment to the article, please.
Well, since it's a citizen's petition, I'd like the proponent to be able to present it first.
Hi, I'll try this again. I'm Susanna
Welcome
Sheehan.
back.
Thank you. 122 Powder Point Avenue. This is my citizens petition article. Since we're going so fast, I'll try not to take up a lot of time. It's basically an amendment to Duxbury's general bylaws that makes it illegal to dump or store any private property, including kayaks, paddleboards, on the town property known as Shipyard Lane Beach. Shipyard Lane is a very special place. It was given to the town as a gift in 1944 by Evan and Grace Ellison. They gave the upland and the beach to the town, and town meeting voters voted to accept it that same year. It's not a boat launch, and it's not a town landing. It's a beautiful little private, a public beach that is safe for swimming and perfect for children of all ages. Since over the past couple of years, probably 5, maybe more, it has become custom of some people to leave and store their kayaks and paddleboards down on this public property. And the problem has kind of gotten out of control. At the end of the summer of 2019, I counted over 100 canoes, kayaks, paddleboards at the end of Shipyard, with at least 2 halfway buried in the ground because they had been there for so long. And we've also witnessed people coming down on Shipyard Lane and just dumping them in the fall and the winter. All these kayaks and canoes are ugly, and they are taking up space that should be available to the public. They're also holding water, which can pose a public health hazard because it can, standing water breeds mosquitoes, which can carry diseases like Triple E and West Nile virus. And sometimes in the past, they've floated off on a very high tide, into the bay and have required a response by the Duxbury Harbor Master because they don't know if someone's fallen out of the kayak or if it's just floated away. The problem was addressed after I brought it to the attention of the town manager in 2019, and he and the police chief jumped and acted on it, and all the kayaks and canoes that were being there were either taken back by their owners or taken. And it's been much less of a problem, but the point of the article is that it gives the town some teeth in dealing with this. It adds language that prohibits the storage of any personal property on town property. It allows the town to dispose of this property as it sees fit. It requires a sign be installed that says you cannot leave your kayaks or personal watercraft there. There is no such sign at Shipyard. And it gives the town the ability to fine anyone, if they want to, who leaves the property there. The problem has been mitigated in recent years, but it can easily happen again. I know people have been asking my family, is it okay to leave our kayaks down there this summer? And so if you guys vote for this article, which I hope you do, the town will have the law on its side, and it can do something to prevent this problem from reoccurring. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mrs. Morris, you have an amendment.
Do I give the copies of this to you right now, or just read it?
Is it a relatively simple amendment?
It is.
Why don't you read it out, and perhaps if...
Okay, for
So
Article...
if I could interrupt for a second, if you have your warrant, this article starts on page 51. Please go ahead.
Holly Morris, 145 Abrams Hill Road. For Article 29, I am proposing that for Section 7.28 storage or property at Shipyard Lane, 7.28.1 read as follows. No portion of the beach, parking lot, and grassed upland areas at the end of Shipyard Lane off of Washington Street, owned by the town of Duxbury and shown on Assessor's Map 120-505-21, shall be used for temporary or permanent storage of any personal property by anyone other than the town of Duxbury from November 1st to April 30th. Section 7.28.2, anything left or stored in said areas at the end of Shipyard Lane from November 1st to April 30th may be disposed of by the town at the direction of the town manager and/or Board of Selectmen. The town shall post and maintain signs at Shipyard Lane to notify the public of these restrictions, and to strike 7.28.3 and to strike 7.28.4, and I will explain further.
Please.
Duxbury has 22 miles of shoreline. The majority is privately owned, and only 6% of all parcels in Duxbury are waterfront. For this reason, the town's citizens have rights to public landings and ways to water so that we can all enjoy the beautiful bay for swimming, hunting, shellfishing, boating, or just enjoying the view. And this is why Howland's Landing was acquired. There are 16 town landings, as Ms. Sheehan pointed out, and 10 ways to the water. And I would wager that most of you have no idea where most of these are. Some offer very limited parking, and several have no parking. In some instances, neighboring homeowners have encroached upon these sites and maintain them as their own property. Shipyard is a way to the water thanks to the Ellison's gift. Yes, there have been a lot of colorful watercraft stored on the site, and the 2019 demand from the town to remove them was very effective. The flats serve as a town mooring field for at least 20 or more boats. People pay for the right to moor here, and some people, and there are only a few, have stored their dinghies on the beach north of the blacktop ramp or on the private beachfront property thanks to the generous homeowners. Unfortunately, sea level rise and erosion have damaged the marsh, and the owner is rightfully concerned about further damage to her property. For 22 years, we have kept our dinghy on this beach, and we understand the owner's concerns. We, and I'm sure other dinghy owners, would like the opportunity to store our boats on the grassy area with the colorful kayaks and paddle boards. It is not an abuse of land. It is temporary storage of recreational, non-powered watercraft on a limited area. If mosquitoes are a problem, then the owners must turn their boats over. At Shipyard, it is posted, you cannot launch a boat. There are so many people, including Shipyard, that boat launching by trailer is dangerous, and there is no place to park with a trailer on your car. Eliminating watercraft presents a problem for access to the water. It eliminates access to our boats, which are on a paid town mooring. Many people, including myself, have enjoyed a lifetime of sailing, and if we can't access our boats, we have sadly lost a right. Perhaps boats could be registered and the harbor master or by the harbor master, or a nominal fee is charged for the use of the property. But for now, I'd like to make the following amendment that I just stated: to allow storage of watercraft at Shipyard, but only from May 1st to October 31st, and that all watercraft be removed from the site by November 1st. And I would like to strike the penalties that are stated in 7.28.3 and 28.4.
Thank you. If you could share, Mrs. Morris, if you could just share that written copy with our town clerk so we get it accurate, I'd appreciate it. So we're now going to talk about the amendment. If you have a comment, a question, discussion about the amendment, we'll deal with that now, and then we'll vote on it. Nobody over here, so please. Sir. You. I noticed you first. I noticed you first. So we'll start with you, and then we'll come to this side.
Certainly. John McLaren, 379 Tremont Street, Duxbury. I think we're all familiar with the end of Shipyard Lane if we've been here for a while. I lived briefly there in the 70s, and I've been going there about 4 or 5 days a week since then to eat my croissants with my wife. My kids use it. It's a wonderful landing. I think we got to be clear that the area we're talking about is not between the parking lot and the beach where people put their chairs. It's to the right of the parking lot. I don't find it to be an eyesore. I think it's beautiful. My kids have used kayaks there. We drop the kayaks, we bring them back. Some people can't bring them back right away. We know it's tidal, right? It's beautiful. It's been there for a long time. I hope that we don't force people to remove that. The purpose for this gift, as stated in the reasons, is for recreational activities.
So
Kayaks are peaceful. They don't emit gas or oil. They don't emit noise. I ask that we do not vote for this petition to remove.
So, and excuse me, we're talking about the amendment at this point, not the article itself.
My apologies.
That's fine.
Well, I
So-
support the amendment.
You support the amendment, and just to be clear, I know we had an amendment that was made, and can I have a second for the amendment, please?
Second.
We have a second for the amendment.
So so we'll mark you down and you support the amendment column.
Thank you, sir.
Very good. Sir?
Good afternoon. Bill McBain, 406 Tremont Street. I have two concerns about this article.
I'm going to ask you to talk about the amendment only. That's the item that we're going to vote on next. Is this about Mrs. Sheehan's amendment?
Well, there are, you tell me, there are issues. There's the amendment, but I think the amendment should be broader. So
Well-
how do you want to address that?
Well,
Because it doesn't address all the issues raised by the petition.
what we're talking about at this point is the amendment that Mrs. Sheehan has made. I'm sorry, the amendment that Mrs. Morris has made. I apologize. Mrs. Morris made an amendment that would limit the time and do away with the fines, and that's what that's what we will be voting on next. We will get to Mrs. Sheehan's article in a little bit.
Mary Lampert, 148 Washington Street. I live around the corner from Shipyard Lane and enjoy it and look forward to enjoying it with our grandchildren who can't wait to get old enough to have the kayaks. And looking at Jim and I, rest assured, we will not be carrying those kayaks down Washington Street and Shipyard Lane. I do not see them as an eyesore. Rather, I see it in first support the article and then have the town take the opportunity to put racks there and charge for storage, which would control the number and make it visually appealing. But I think that the amendment should go forward, and then you can deal with the fine points later.
Okay, thank you. Mrs. Sheehan.
Thank you. I'd like to speak to the amendment. I would urge you to vote down this amendment for a couple reasons. Where else in town do people feel it's okay to leave their private items on public land? And where else does the town permit it? Nowhere. It's wrong. If people can bring their kayaks and canoes down to the beach, then they can bring them home with them. It's as simple as that. One of the reasons about getting the 100+ kayaks and canoes out of this area is that because at high tide with sea level rise, there's no beach left. Having this grassy area, and the grass will grow back, would provide more space for the beach-going public to sit around there. Anyway, I'd ask you not to allow the storage. It's just a slippery slope. And I will say, if you remember back in 2014, there was a proposal to put racks down there, and it was defeated by town meeting back then. Thank you.
Okay. I think you were in line first, and then we'll get to you.
All right. Thank
On
you.
the amendment.
Thomas Nee, 590 Bay Road. I'm strongly in favor of this amendment. I think a town bylaw to rule on this is a little extreme. The penalties are very high. I don't myself leave any watercraft down there, but I have taken my own watercraft down there. But there are so many teenagers who don't have a car or can't drive yet. And it seems reasonable to me if somebody wanted to leave it down there for a week or two to let their teenagers then walk or bike to the beach and use those watercraft. I don't want to stop that from happening, and this bylaw would do that. So I'm in favor of the amendment.
Okay, thank you. Please.
Tussock Brook Road. Eve Penoyer, 59 Tussock Brook Road. I'm opposed to the amendment because I support the article as it's originally written. My concerns include the unlimited nature of the amendment. It's going to become a free-for-all, and again, you could easily have 100 kayaks, which to me seems excessive, nor should there even be one left overnight, for example, because that appropriation of public land interferes with the rights of all the rest of the public, whether they are living on that street or in that neighborhood or not, to go there, sit there, picnic there, and enjoy it in a natural state. So that's why I oppose the amendment. In addition, if town meeting grants that kind of permission, you're also saddling the town with potential liabilities that it does not currently have. And that's a serious concern. Thanks.
Thank you. I think we're starting to hear the same comments over again. I think we've probably reached the point where we can take a vote on Mrs. Morris's amendment, which would allow storage during certain times of the year and do away with the penalties. I think is a fair summation of it, just so people understand what we're voting on at this point. If you are in favor of that amendment made by Mrs. Morris, in a few minutes we will vote using our clickers. And if you're in favor of having that amendment, you want to press 1 for yes. If you're opposed to it, press 2 for no. When the light comes on, we'll be able to vote. All those in favor of the amendment, press 1. All those opposed, press 2. Voting is open. So in terms of the amendment, 65 people voted, and the amendment passes 40 to 25. So now we have the motion on the floor, which is the motion made by the citizen's petition that Mrs. Sheehan spoke to. With the amendment that Mrs. Morris made to it, we have a discussion on that. Sir.
Yes, again, Bill McBain, 406 Tremont Street. I have two concerns about this article in its present form. One is, firstly, the proposal only addresses Shipyard Lane. It doesn't address other town properties, i.e. Holland's Landing, where there are kayaks and skiffs stored there. More importantly, secondly, I've had for several years a sailboat moored off Shipyard Lane under a town mooring permit. And I store my skiff at the south end of Shipyard Lane, and that's the area we're talking about. The area in question is 103 feet from west to east to the shoreline. There are rocks at the end of the shoreline and approximately 12 feet wide. So that's the area we're talking about where the kayaks and skiffs are stored. I maintain my skiff upside down so it doesn't collect water, and I have an identification tag that clearly states my name and a contact number. My concern is that, when you look at the petition, the explanation, there are probably three primary concerns that the petitioner has raised. One is the storage of kayaks and watercraft year-round. The second one is the storage of watercraft or kayaks in an upright position, thereby could collect water and could be a health hazard. And the third one is a concern that the kayaks have no identification. So if for some reason they get loose, they're not easily identified. And that could be obviously the harbor master or some other authority might be utilizing resources that if there was an identification, they wouldn't need to do it. I would propose to the amendment that just passed that one other sentence is added in the first section. And basically, I'm talking about section 7.281, a new paragraph at the very end where it says, at the end of Shipyard Lane in the first paragraph, that a new paragraph, one sentence, be added. All personal, in parentheses, watercraft shall be stored upside down and clearly identified owner's name and telephone number. I think that if that is added to the amendment, it addresses the concerns of the petition. Obviously, the year-round storage has been addressed by the amendment, and then obviously the situation of the collection of water if they're upside down and the identification. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, do you have the amendment written out?
Yes.
So I wonder if you could share that with us, and in case other people did not follow it, could you repeat it again?
Sure.
Please. So if you'll read it out again, I'd appreciate it.
At the end of the 7.28.1, there's two-sentence paragraph. My amendment would add one more paragraph or one sentence thereafter. And the sentence would read, all personal property, in parentheses, watercraft, shall be stored upside down and shall clearly identify owner's name and contact number.
Okay, thank you. And could you share that with the town clerk up here, please? Thank you. We have a motion to amend the article and a second. We'll deal with the amendment at this point in time. Is there anybody, it's a pretty straightforward amendment. Anybody want to speak, question, discuss the amendment that you're being asked to vote on? Nope, I guess he's not going to your microphone. So sensing no questions, I'm going to ask for a vote on the amendment that was just made. We'll do it electronically. All those in favor of that amendment to the article, please press, when the light goes on, press 1 for yes or 2 for no. And voting is open. 1 for yes, 2 for no on the amendment. Voting is closed. That amendment passes 59-5. So now we've made a second change to the original article that we saw on the warrant. Are we ready to vote on the article, or do we need to talk about that a little more?
Vote on the article.
All right, I think we're ready for a vote on the citizens petition filed by Mrs. Sheehan that was modified by with 2 modifications that have been made. All of those, ready? When the green light comes on, if you're in favor of that, press 1. If you're opposed to it, press 2. And voting is now open. 1 for yes, 2 for no. Voting is closed. We're going to have to vote. I think we can vote this with a voice vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All those opposed? I call it a majority with minimal opposition. Article passes. Article number 30, Mrs.
I vote to indefinitely postpone this article.
Second.
Finance Committee voted 7-0 to indefinitely postpone.
Any discussion? All those in favor of indefinite postponement, please say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Ayes have it. That completes the business in the warrant for the annual town meeting. I will entertain a motion to adjourn this meeting. Sani die.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. Ayes have it. Thank you all very much for your patience and spending your Saturday morning with us.